Chapter 642. The God-slaying saber slashed down from above. It was plain and simple, but Lu Qing felt his surroundings suddenly dim, as though he was isolated from the world. Not only that, but they were also surging with undercurrents, piling up layer after layer of invisible shackles, making it difficult for him to break free. It was difficult for him to punch and kick, as if he could only watch as the long saber slashed down, resisting metal with his flesh. It was as if he had a big hammer but he had a head. Nothing can be accomplished without rules. The saber entered Lu Cheng's eyes. Its shape was blurry and dim, as though it occupied the entire sky and ruled over everything. Other than that, there was nothing else. At that moment, Lu Cheng's soul was temporarily shaken. His body felt as though it was tied up by ropes and he couldn't move. Facing the god-slaying saber, he didn't have time to think. Following the flash of thought and the martial arts accumulation and battle experience rooted in his root pulp, he retracted his chi and blood and gathered his dan at his lower abdomen. The dazzling stars moved slightly, immediately outlining the word fighting that was full of power. Boom. His dan chi erupted like a volcano. Lu Cheng's muscles expanded and he grew taller and bigger. He broke the invisible shackles, and the sound of shattering could be heard from his surroundings. As the white gas scattered, he regained his mobility. He turned his back, raised his shoulders, swung his arms and threw a punch into the air. Breaking order with violence. Boom. His fist hit the side of the saber and the blurry darkness dissipated. The god-slaying saber bent like a bow, and it finally appeared clearly. It was a dark saber about the length of an arm. It was heavy and restrained, and between the reflections, there was a golden glow flowing, making the surroundings even darker. At that moment, Lu Yongyuan shook his wrist. The god-slaying saber bounced up and straightened with a clang. Following which, he slashed again and again from left and right, as though he was writing the character 4-8. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Lu Yongyuan repeated the process, slashing the character 4-8 again and again. The more he slashed, the faster he got. The sound of the wind was intense and there was a hint of blood in it. Lu Qing felt as though he had encountered a heavy downpour. He took a deep breath and maintained his visualization, turning into a violent snowstorm. He slashed, collapsed, blasted, and whipped, using speed against speed in continuous attacks. Clang. Dang 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 dang. Crisp clashing sounds reverberated in all directions, like raindrops hitting banana leaves. Frost formed on both sides of the black god-slaying saber. It was getting heavier and heavier, more and more burdensome. On the other hand, Lu Qing gradually felt numb and powerless, as though he was slowly being corroded by a dark poison. He felt that there was no end to Lu Yongyuan's knife momentum. It would continue until it destroyed him. It was like the night sky in the evening. No matter how much the sun struggled, how much it burned the clouds, it would still be slowly but surely swallowed up, leaving no trace behind. Clang, clang. Lu Qing clenched his fists and swung his elbows, barely managing to block the long blade. He knew that he couldn't continue like this, or else he would be in a completely passive position. The outcome of the battle would be in the hands of others. He could only hope that Lu Yongyuan wouldn't be able to hold on for long. All of a sudden he curled up his body and squatted down. With his strength, chi, blood, and mind, the god-slaying saber struck nothing but air. Boom. Before the long blade struck, he exploded his dan force and exerted force in his legs. Instead of retreating, he pounced towards Lu Yongyuan, holding a ball of light purple flames in each hand. If he dodged or retreated, the knife momentum would come continuously, and he wouldn't be able to shake it off. The best way to deal with this move was to attack. Pouncing close to the ground, Lu Qing clasped his hands in front of him, wanting to collide with the two balls of purple flames and shoot out a prairie fire. But just as Lu Qing leaped, Lu Yongyuan took a step back with perfect precision, reducing the distance between them by a centimeter. It was as though he was dancing with his opponent. With a flick of his wrist, the long blade came down swiftly towards Lu Qing. It left a streak of light in its wake, like a bolt of lightning that cut through the darkness. The darker the surroundings, the more powerful it was. At the same time, an explosion sounded in the air, like a thunderbolt on a sunny day. Lu Qing's scalp went numb. Without thinking, he pulled his shoulders and forcefully shook his arms upwards, letting the purple flames collide with the blade. Boom. Purple flames gushed out, wrapping around the long blade. It was so viscous that it looked like lava. Taking advantage of the momentary pause of the god-slaying blade, Lu Qing leaped backwards, his face almost touching the ground as though he was skiing. Poof. The long blade broke through the purple flames, brushed past Lu Cheng's leg and fell into the air. Lu Yongyuan's face was expressionless. Following this trend, he squatted down, letting the long blade, which was emitting dense darkness, stab into the ground. Bam! Bam! Yenjika covered her mouth, while Brahmin and the others screamed. In their eyes, Lu Qing had fallen into an extremely dangerous situation, and in his current state, it would be difficult for him to respond well. At this critical moment, Lu Qing retracted his limbs and curled up his body, avoiding most of the bam. In his mind, he quickly outlined the deep and cold darkness and the heavy sun that had crashed into this area. Mutated version of severe warning. To him, performing a simplified physical invulnerability move was already very fast. Bam! Lu Qing shook his shoulders, swung his arm, and punched down with his right fist. The surface was covered in darkness, heavy and restrained, as though it could absorb everything in the world. Whoosh! 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 7 or 8 bam of bam were affected, slightly changing their trajectories, and struck Lu Qing's fist, dissolving into the darkness. Immediately after, the darkness exploded, the force spurting out and hitting the ground. Lu Qing took advantage of this to bounce up and change his direction in midair. Just as he stepped on the ground, he stirred up a strong wind and changed his position, avoiding further attacks. During this process, his right fist was covered in cuts and darkness invaded. Much of his strength was absorbed and he could only droop weakly. Lu Yongyuan paused again, nodded with satisfaction, and said, "The 3 strikes just now are called Dusk, Heaven Spear, and Raging Waves. Next is the 8th strike. Extreme Electricity." Before Lu Yongyuan finished his sentence, he had already bent down. His long blade turned back as though it was returning to its sheath, and then it bounced back out. It was at this moment that Lu Qing sensed an extreme sense of danger. Without giving it much thought, he straightened his back, took a step to the side, and turned his body sideways. All of a sudden, a flash of light appeared in front of Lu Qing. The long blade was already at the spot he had been standing at. It was unimaginably fast. Behind the gleam of the blade were the waves of air that had been split apart. They revealed their form and clustered around extreme electricity. Boom! Only when everything was clear did the strong sonic boom enter Lu Qing's ears. Rolling waves of air were sent flying in all directions. It was similar to the flying dragon takedown of the Xinzhai sect. They were both at the pinnacle of blade speed. Clang! The god-slaying saber seemed to be unable to withstand the pressure. It trembled and made a noise, but at the same time, it seemed to be enjoying itself. It couldn't help but let out a loud cry. Lu Yongyuan's expression darkened slightly. A glint flashed in his eyes, and he retracted his long blade and held it horizontally across his lower abdomen. Suddenly, a sharp glint spurted out, and the surroundings turned pitch black. The sun at 2 or 3 in the afternoon was swallowed by the heavenly hound. In the endless darkness, Lu Qing couldn't see or hear anything. Even his spirit seemed to have lost its support. It was empty and there was no feedback. This caused him to feel a chill in his heart. He felt as if he was about to be devoured by the heavenly hound. Channeling his qi and blood, Lu Qing was not stingy with his flame force. There was no technique involved in the flame force. It was just a lot of it, and it was just fast. Blazing white light gathered and blasted out, quickly falling into the darkness and disappearing before Lu Qing's eyes. However, after that there was no burst of fire, no sound of explosion. Everything around him was silent, as if it was dead. The darkness surged in uncontrollably. Lu Qing actually felt like admitting defeat. However, his willpower was strong and his ice heart was unaffected. All kinds of thoughts still flashed through his mind. The 9 words formula was used simultaneously. Internally, it was used to increase one's mental strength. Externally, it would allow one to face the enemy without fear, weaken the enemy, and strengthen oneself. Within a certain range, one would be able to see through illusions caused by mental suppression. Lu Qing suspected that most of the effects of this slash were illusions, an experience after one's mind was blinded. Once the 9 words formula appeared, his vision suddenly became clear. The dim glow of the saber had already reached him, but it didn't cover up the surrounding colors and flames from the flame force explosion. Raising one hand to protect his face, he clenched his other hand into a fist and punched out. Lu Qing found the god-slaying saber hidden in the dim glow. Clang! The long saber trembled and slanted to the side. Lu Qing's body was covered in wounds. All of them were pitch-black wounds that curled up his skin and flesh. His mind went blank for a moment as if he had been poisoned. He quickly gathered his qi and blood, alleviating most of the effects. Taking advantage of the situation, he punched forward, switching from defense to offense. Lu Yongyuan floated backwards, his long saber drawing a line in front of him, separating the two. Then he said in a deep voice, "I've lost." 9 slashes had passed? Lu Qing stopped in his tracks. He couldn't believe it. In order to respond, he had used all his strength and racked his brains. He didn't even count how many slashes there were. Lu Yongyuan looked straight into his eyes and said, 9 slashes have passed. I've lost. The last slash is called Eternal Silence. After that, he shook his head, turned around, and left. Half in thought, half in despair, he muttered, "Too slow, too slow." Chapter 643. Looking at Lu Yongyuan's straight but bleak back as he left, Lu Qing didn't feel much joy from winning the match. Even when the referee announced his victory, it didn't cause any ripples in his heart. If he had finally defeated this titled mighty one after a tough battle, even if he wasn't paying attention and didn't perform well, he would definitely be overjoyed and excited. However, after 9 such strikes, Lu Yongyuan, who still had a lot of fighting power left, admitted defeat and left. It made him feel suffocated and didn't feel like he was the winner. Does this count as running away after showing off? How exciting? Lu Qing complained to himself as the thought flashed through his mind. Recalling what had just happened, Lu Yongyuan had indeed shown him what a top-notch physical invulnerability expert was. It could even be said that he was the world's top-notch saber technique. If he hadn't paused twice in between to describe the moves, he might not have been able to withstand more than 9 strikes. This is the difference between me and a true top-notch expert. Lu Qing came to this realization as he recalled the battle from before. He vaguely felt that he had made some progress under the pressure of Lu Yongyuan's 9 strokes bladesmanship. He seemed to be able to grasp the techniques of physical invulnerability moves at his fingertips and was no longer restricted by the rules of the past. Thinking back to the past 10 days of sparring with Xan Xiaoye, Wang Ke and Living Buddha, Lu Qing suddenly felt that he hadn't come here in vain. He had seen and learned a lot. Wasn't this the reason why he joined the master battle in the first place? All of a sudden, Lu Qing's emotions were cleared and he was in a good mood. His footsteps were steady but fast as he walked to the riverside. He couldn't wait to share his joy with his little fairy. "Ha ha, you've been boasting. I thought you couldn't block his 9 strikes." Setting off Firecracker's expression, Brahman said. Looking at his boastful look, "I've been nervous for a long time." Eternal Nightfall, Yen Shaoling added. Following which she had a question. "Didn't he say 9 strikes? He must have slashed at least a dozen times." Chop. "In your mouth, a grandmaster of the way of the saber is like a hooligan on the streets." Facepalm expression. Unparalleled Dragon King explained, covering face expression. In a martial arts competition, 9 sabers means 9 moves. Oh, so that's how it is. I knew that he's a titled expert, so he can't be so shameless. Yen Shaoling suddenly realized. She had been holding back this question for a long time. Nye Chichi asked curiously, "Why did the god-slaying saber make a promise of 9 moves? I saw that he was in pretty good condition at the end. There shouldn't be any problems if we continue to fight." Road to the arena drifted over and explained, "I'm not sure. Martial artists who use the saber like to leave no room for retreat. They like to cut off all means of retreat. They don't give themselves the slightest chance of hesitation or wavering. With this, they push their will to the extreme and make their state exceed normal. Just now, the god-slaying saber was like that. It compressed all hope into 9 moves and gave off the most dazzling light." Really? Yen Shaoling was stunned. She felt like her horizons had been broadened. "Of course." Road to the arena replied with a smirk. "Of course it's fake. I just made it up. How can martial artists like us understand the thoughts of physical invulnerability experts?" At this moment there was a heated discussion on Weibo. They felt that Lu Yongyuan's choice was incomprehensible. There's no problem with the promise of 9 moves. This is the attitude of a senior mighty warrior towards a rising star. However, during the battle, Lu Yongyuan paused twice to give Lu Qing a chance to regroup. He didn't have to continue dodging and making others feel like he didn't want to win. The well-known ID difference of 1 move expressed his doubts. Poison Milk Hierarch He Xiaowei reposted. Maybe there's a big problem with Lu Yongyuan's new move and he needs to take a break? Or maybe Lu Yongyuan was too confident and wanted to give the full 9 moves a chance, but he made a mistake? There are too many reasons like this. We don't have to care about them. Let's happily discuss how Lu Qing entered the top 16 as a 3rd pin martial artist. This isn't something that happens often. When this was said, there were many comments. They all had the same feeling. A physical invulnerability expert defeated a titled mighty one in his first few matches. No one else can do that. Yeah. Although there are various reasons, it's still a shocking thing. Alright, is there a lip reader? I couldn't hear what Lu Yongyuan said at the end. He said it was too slow, too slow. What he meant was that the ninth move gave Lu Qing too much time to react. Even if he made a mistake, he still had a chance to make up for it. I admire people with special skills like the one above. Lu Yongyuan hasn't named his self-created move, right? Let me think of one. It's from the dark sect, but it's also different from the dark sect. Why don't we call it the non-dark sect? Lu family saber. It's simple and clear. Amidst the various opinions, Lu Qing ended his chat with Yan Zhika. He had a good night's sleep and completely eliminated the dark poison in his body. At 7:30 p.m. he watched the remaining 8 elimination matches in the hotel. He was excited about the few matches between the strong. In the third last match, Renli went up the stage and challenged Lion King Shang Yud. Her opponent was a monster with tenacious vitality and astonishing recovery speed. Apart from attacking his vitals, it was almost impossible to break through his defense. Ren Li's sword could cut through mummies and dark night bats, but the most she could do was leave a shallow wound on the Lion King's body. Such a wound would heal in a few seconds or a dozen seconds. After trying hidden scent and other moves, but to no avail, Renli could only rely on the wind sex movements to move around and fight. However, after a long battle, it was inevitable that she would slip up. She was immediately caught by Lion King and defeated in a round of counterattacks. You can think of what to treat us to now. After the match, Peng Liyun immediately tagged Lu Qing in the group chat. Lu Qing replied, I feel like this meal should be treated by God-slaying saber. If you can get him to treat us, we don't mind. Peng Liyun replied emotionlessly. I think he'll kill me. Wiping cold sweat expression. And Chaoyang laughed and said, Is it too late for me to book a ticket now? No problem. The top 16 match is the night after tomorrow. Renli suddenly replied. Didn't you just finish your match? Peng Liyun was a little stunned. Renli replied matter-of-factly, I just returned to the changing room and wanted to urge Lu Qing. Chihuahuas are always full of energy. Lu Qing laughed and shook his head. After half an hour, the remaining 2 matches ended. Lu Qing realized that other than himself, the rest of the top 16 contestants were all famous mighty ones. Warrior Sage Chen Donglu, Kirin Dong Baxian, Wisdom King Ji Hai, Taoist Sword Wuxiao, Spear King Huang Ku, Clown Gu Jianxi, Queen of Thought Fei Dan, Optimus Prime Long Zhen, Blazing Sword Qi Ling. If they weren't titled mighty ones, they were strong reserves for the title. Looking at these, Lu Qing's mouth twitched. He sent a message to Yan Zhika. I feel like a sheep in a pack of wolves. All around me are big shots. Yan Zhika was taking a break between classes when she saw a notification. Because of the word husky, she clicked on it with interest. The main theme of the news was that a husky had sneaked into a pack of wolves in a zoo and was hiding there. He looked so dumb that he couldn't keep up his act. As she was browsing, she saw a message from Cheng. She switched the interface and saw the content. A sheep in a pack of wolves? It's obviously. Thinking of the previous news, Yan Zhika couldn't help but laugh. She quickly covered her mouth with her hand. Her body trembled for a long time as if someone had poked her laughing nerve. After a while, she recovered and replied with a cute expression, Yes, yes, yes. Brother Cheng, you're right. Your answer feels weird. Frowning expression, puzzled expression, replied Lu Qing. No, I'm not, replied Yan Zhika with her dimples. What did you think of? Lu Qing didn't believe her. He guessed very well. Yan Zhika sent an emoji of rolling its eyes with a hint of complacency. Have you heard the song of Little Dragon Man? My answer is in it, the answer is in the song? Confused and curious, Lu Qing searched the song and browsed through the lyrics. He saw a dozen words, I'm not telling you, I'm not telling you, I'm not telling you. Lu Qing was dumbfounded with his mouth half open. After a while he burst out laughing. He couldn't wait to pull Yan Zhika into his arms. However, there was a TV, a coffee table, and a small fridge in front of him, but there was no beautiful figure. He stared blankly and was silent for more than 10 seconds. Then he smiled again and expressed his admiration for his wife's wit in a light tone. The top 16 of the Master Battle drew lots to determine the later matches. The winners and their counterparts would enter the top 8 and the semifinals. During the process of drawing lots, the conversations between the masters attracted a lot of attention. When Lu Qing got the second place in the bottom half, he heard his name. His opponent was Wuxia Club Gu Jianxi. The clown Gu Jianxi. P.S. Why didn't you vote for it? Chapter 644. At the side entrance of Jiuqiu City's 50,000-seat stadium, Gu Jianxi, who had just participated in the elimination round of the top 32 and watched the lot drawing ceremony, walked out with his hands in his pockets. He turned into the alley behind him. He had a hairstyle commonly seen in war-torn zones, with a head full of small braids. There was a tattoo of a clown with black and green stripes on his neck and cheek. The lower down, the more exposed his skin was, the more tattoos there were. They were densely packed and stacked on top of each other, sending chills down one's spine. There was an unreliable rumor in the pugilistic world that Gu Jianxi would get a tattoo as a souvenir every time he experienced a major event. For example, the clown tattoo represented the first time he killed someone. At this moment, Gu Jianxi was wearing a black and colorful hip-hop style t-shirt. He didn't look like a renowned physical invulnerability mighty one, but more like a rapper. Just as he was about to turn the corner, a male reporter who had been waiting for him for a long time leaped over, raised his microphone and asked, "Mr. Gu, what are your thoughts on the battle between you and Lu Cheng for the top 16? It was forbidden to interview martial artists before the start of the competition to avoid disturbing the mood of the contestants. Therefore he had to seize this fleeting opportunity." Before he could finish his sentence, the reporter with 2 pimples on his forehead saw Gu Jianxi looking at him coldly. That gaze was like that of a wild wolf choosing its prey, and it made him shudder. "I was just asking. It's fine if you don't want to answer." The reporter opened his mouth to explain, but he couldn't even stutter. His voice was stuck in his throat. As expected of the clown, who had taken more than 100 lives. He sighed to himself with fear and trepidation. And this was under the premise that the clown rarely left the country after the ranking ceremony. Gu Jianxi retracted his gaze and spat out 3 words coldly. "No opinion. No opinion." The reporter's mind went blank as he stood there stiffly. He only recovered when the clown took a few steps forward. He keenly picked up on the emotions hidden in Gu Jianxi's words. He was angry because of the question, so he had no opinion? Why was he angry? Was it because the question had insulted him? In a flash of inspiration, the reporter caught up with him. He panted slightly and said, "Mr. Gu, do you think there's no need to discuss this match? Do you think there's only one outcome? That you're sure of winning?" Gu Jianxi turned his head to look at him expressionlessly. He answered in a flat tone, "You're right. Yes." When the simple word yes entered the reporter's ears, it was as if he had heard the sound of nature. He felt that he had gotten the big news of the day. As expected of the clown, who was known for being straightforward. He was not hypocritical, he was not tactful, he was not afraid, he was not perfunctory. If there was something he wanted to say, he would always say it directly. Taking a deep breath, the reporter's thoughts raced. He hurriedly added another question, an even sharper one. "Do you think that Lu Cheng is an exception in the top 16, a product of luck and not enough to compete with you?" Just as he finished asking, he suddenly realized that Gu Jianxi's gaze had darkened. His gaze had become like an X-ray, as if he could see every dirty thought in his heart clearly. Gu Jianxi stared at him for 10 seconds. His stare made him feel as if he had fallen into an ice cave. It was as if he had been continuously slashed by someone with a sword. It was as if he had arrived at the terrifying edge of death. Beads of sweat the size of soybeans slid down his forehead. Just when the reporter felt that he could not take it anymore and was about to break down, Gu Jianxi turned his head and entered the alley, leaving behind an indifferent answer. "For now, yes." When his silhouette disappeared, the reporter relaxed. He bent over, his hands on his knees, and retched for a while. "For now, yes. For now, yes." He stood up straight again and chewed on those 3 words. Gradually, an excited smile appeared on his face. 10 minutes later, a lot of shocking headlines appeared on the internet. Breaking news. The clown sees Lu Cheng as nothing. "I'm definitely going to win." So declared Gu Jianxi. The clown says Lu Cheng doesn't deserve to be in the top 16 of the master battle. This is going to be interesting. There's an uproar everywhere. Xan Xiaoye, who had just entered the hotel lobby, clicked her tongue as she looked at her phone. Just then, from the corner of her eye, she saw a gloomy Gu Jianxi appear at the main entrance. "Have you seen it?" Xan Xiaoye waved her phone. Gu Jianxi nodded without any expression, indicating that he already knew about the headlines and the argument between the fans of the 2 groups. "Sai, it's not like you don't know. These reporters, if you give them 1 point, they'll give you 5 points, said Xian Xiaoye casually. "If it were me, I'd give them 10 points. She didn't expect Gu Jianxi to answer her, but after a few seconds of silence, he actually gave her a concise explanation. There were really only 2 sentences. "I'm telling the truth. Angry prey is easier to deal with." After that, Gu Jianxi shut his mouth and walked to the elevator with his usual gloomy expression. leaving the flattered Xan Xiaoye standing there in a daze. Lu Qing sat cross-legged on the bed, comforting his wife while watching Yan Xiaoling and the others discuss among themselves. It made him look like an outsider. He knew very well that there was nothing wrong with what Lu Qing said. With his newly consolidated strength, he could win against Crazy Blade on a whim, but it was almost impossible for him to defeat Lu Qing. Among the top 16 martial artists, he was indeed much weaker than the others. Even he himself had complained that he was like a sheep in a pack of wolves. So there was nothing to be angry about. Of course, not being angry didn't mean he wasn't depressed. Knowing clearly that didn't mean he could accept it rationally. Lu Qing couldn't help but feel a little depressed. He just wanted time to pass quickly. Give me 2 more years, no, 1 more year. Even if I don't get a title, I'll be qualified to stand here. When that time comes, I'll defeat you fair and square. As his thoughts ran wild, he focused more of his energy on watching the clown's battle videos and watching the Death Sect unique skill that was infused with a little bit of freezing. With such seriousness and focus, the top 16 elimination round arrived quickly. At 7:30 p.m. In early November, it was already chilly. Crowds of spectators rushed to the stadium against the chilly autumn wind, filling up the Jianghu city's 50,000-seat stadium, leaving only the passageway between the battleground and the empty seats to prevent stampedes. After hearing Little Fairy's cheers, Lu Qing calmed down. He stood up without feeling angry, happy, expectant, or self-deprecating, and walked out of the changing room. He didn't think about what would happen if he won or lost the match. He was only thinking about how to do his best and grab hold of that sliver of opportunity to win. Walking through the long passageway and stepping onto the field that no longer had green grass, Lu Qing, wearing a white martial arts suit with dragon and tiger patterns, saw Gu Jianxi, who was already standing opposite him. The clown was dressed in black. Even his eyes were like the night without stars and moon. His aura was cold and dangerous, as though he would kill at the slightest provocation. The clown's avatar, which was green with a tinge of black, came into Lu Qing's view. Bits and pieces of information about him flashed across Lu Qing's mind. Born in a war-torn zone and grew up in the midst of killing, shockingly talented. Without any powerful martial arts, he could always kill his opponents, discovered by the Dinghai sect elder and brought into the sect. He avoided the fate of always getting his shoes wet. Just at the first pin, he was already at the inhuman stage. A few years later, he made the great leap and was already at the first pin. He didn't like to socialize and didn't do hypocritical things, even if he offended many people. The unique skills of the Death Sect complemented his talents. He was a killer martial artist and showed no mercy when he attacked. He was also the type to perform better in bigger situations. However, when facing opponents weaker than him, he wouldn't be careless and would be equally vicious and deadly. As his thoughts surfaced, Lu Qing saw the referee announcing the start of the match. Gu Jianxi didn't say anything. He just stared at Lu Qing like a poisonous snake staring at a frog. At first, Lu Qing didn't think much of it. However, after being stared at for 10 seconds, he gradually felt the urge to escape and avoid facing it. Gradually he felt uneasy. He quickly formed his ice heart to alleviate the invisible pressure and strong premonition of danger. A dark starry sky appeared, darker than the night sky. Bright stars moved slowly, heavy and scorching. Lu Qing tried to use his aura to shake the clown. However, Gu Jianxi remained unmoved as though he had lost all senses. He continued to stare at Lu Qing, causing ripples in his ice heart. Is this a staring game where whoever blinks first loses? Lu Qing suddenly had a similar thought. He almost burst out laughing. His ice heart regained its calmness and clarity. He didn't take the opportunity to form his 5 flames. This was because today's fighting style would be different from before. At this moment, the referee's voice reverberated throughout the arena. Begin. With a bang, Lu Qing spun on his heel and twisted his waist. Suddenly, a snowstorm enveloped the surroundings. In the white gale, he moved quickly, constantly changing his position as though he was fighting on the move. However, Gu Jianxi didn't move. He squinted his eyes and stood at his original spot. Seeing this, Lu Qing pressed his thumb and a crystal cold light shot out with a whoosh. Then he moved his feet and changed to another place. He punched fiercely and a purple meteor-like flame burst out. Bam! Boom! Ice Spirit Holy Light and Lord Emperor's Purple Flame. The clown Gu Jianxi didn't try to dodge. He only took 2 steps and dodged in the most economical way possible. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Boom boom boom. Lu Qing kept moving in the snowstorm, attacking from afar. The cold light and purple flame danced together. Gu Jianxi, on the other hand, maintained his previous style, moving his body precisely and economically. This allowed Lu Qing to predict his next move. Subconsciously, he paused for 2 seconds to slash at the clown, forcing him to take the initiative to crash into the ice spirit holy light. At this moment, Gu Jianxi suddenly moved. He didn't dodge as Lu Qing had expected. Instead, he bent his back and pounced on his opponent, pouncing on his opponent who had slowed down. A black shadow blurred due to its high speed and quickly approached Lu Qing. Lu Qing had no time to dodge. He dodged, clenched his fist and smashed it diagonally, half blocking and half moving. Bam! Beneath him, the mud and stones suddenly exploded. A hand clenched into a fist and rushed out from the cracked ground, aiming for Lu Qing's vital points. The blurry black shadow instantly turned illusory, distorted, and disappeared. Chapter 645. Throughout the entire process, the split shadows created a strong murderous aura to attract Lu Qing's senses. Gu Jianxi, who had sneaked into the ground at some point in time, concealed his aura, spirit, and other senses, as though he had turned into a real rock. Only at the moment of the surprise attack did he erupt with an earth-shattering explosion. He had put in so much effort just to hide from Lu Qing's ability to foresee danger. However, Gu Jianxi had underestimated the uniqueness of cultivation. Other than being countered by Gu Hui's Dharma access from cultivation once, Lu Qing had never failed. After his third awakening and making the great leap, he even had a hint of the cicada senses before the autumn wind, from the realm of martial arts, the realm of the mighty prowess. The clown's concealment of his aura was excellent. Coupled with the external soul of the dead technique to confuse others, it was indeed perfect. However, the unusual slight vibrations on the ground still alerted Lu Qing. As he clenched his fist and smashed diagonally, he took the opportunity to take a step forward, narrowly avoiding his vital organs. Amidst the splattering of mud and stones, he spread his arms, lifted his right knee, swung his calf, and used the tip of his foot to kick Gu Jianxi's fist that was flying towards the sky. This seemingly ordinary rock spreads its wings, had the power of internal explosion, hidden within it. Lu Qing knew that the clown had incorporated a little of the ice sex techniques and had extremely strong resistance to cold. In a split second, he naturally leaned towards using the fire sex techniques. 4 mighty ones who had made the great leap, their mental strength was strong, and visualization was easy and fast. They could easily execute simplified physical invulnerability moves. Poof! Lu Qing's tip of his foot pecked the side of Gu Jianxi's fist and immediately channeled the hidden Emperor Yin force. At this moment, a dark green glow erupted from the clown's fist and turned into dancing butterflies. Every butterfly took away part of the flame force and started burning on its own. It was green and cold, like the soul-stirring phosphorescence in a mass grave. Seeing that the internal explosion was neutralized, Lu Qing immediately retracted his leg and wanted to step out with his left foot to strike the Lord Emperor's purple flame into the ground to awaken the volcano. Just as he was about to retract his right leg, Gu Jianxi suddenly lost most of his weight, turning into a sticky plaster or a ghost that haunted the human body. He stuck his fist to the tip of Lu Qing's foot, as though he wanted to be lifted by Lu Qing. Not only would he avoid the subsequent attacks directed at the ground, but he could also assassinate Lu Qing at close range. Seeing this, Lu Qing instantly changed his strategy. While he was retracting his right leg, his body was already in the air, and his left leg kicked out continuously. In that instant, Gu Jianxi suddenly retracted his exposed arm. Blurry shadows that resembled evil spirits surged out from the cracks in the ground and crashed into Lu Qing one after another. Rumble. The Emperor Yin force gathered in Lu Qing's left leg exploded. Crimson, white, and purple flames rolled out and swept across, melting many of the ghosts. However, there was an endless stream of evil spirits. Lu Qing, who was struggling to move in midair, looked like he was about to lose his defensive line and become a live target. His expression didn't change. His outstretched hands hung down naturally, forming a seal in front of him. He exhaled and said, "Formation." His deep voice reverberated. The air around the cracks instantly froze, turning into an invisible cage. The evil spirits were sealed underground, unable to break free for a while. Bam! Beside Lu Qing, mud and rocks splattered. A black shadow soared into the sky. It was none other than the clown Gu Jianxi. His eyes were dark green. He didn't clench his right hand to punch, slap, or chop. Instead, he used his middle finger as the tip of a sword and stabbed at Lu Qing's ribs. His fingernails glowed green, and his skin was grayish-white. At this moment, Lu Qing's feet had yet to touch the ground, and his hands had just formed a seal. His momentum was exhausted. He couldn't dodge or block. Gu Jianxi didn't place all his hopes on blinding Lu Cheng's sense of danger. He used the techniques of Undead Will Not Die and 100 Ghosts Parade to create this perfect opportunity to deliver a fatal blow. The third move of the Death Sect, Yama's Invitation. Lu Cheng was very clear that when facing the physical invulnerability moves of the Death Sect, it was best not to have the thought of exchanging injuries for victory. Once he failed to block the move, he would be hit by the unguarded body. Even if it wasn't a vital point, it would still affect his vital points. Under normal circumstances, even if his arms or legs were broken, with the physical invulnerability Mighty One's control over his body, even if they couldn't regrow them, as long as they pressed the missing part back to its original position in time, they would still be able to heal without any repercussions. As for minor injuries, like a hole in the stomach or a collapsed shoulder, they would be treated as normal. However, when facing a martial artist who practiced the unique skills of the Death Sect, such minor injuries could still be fatal. At this critical juncture, Lu Cheng's hands, which were forming the seal, changed naturally. The seal script in his mind reappeared. He aimed at Gu Jianxi and spoke in a dignified but deep voice, "Army." This was the complete army formula. It was 2 to 3 times stronger than the simplified version that only relied on the stimulation of qi and blood. The murderous aura surged into the sky as thousands of sharp points converged. The cold and merciless arrows shot towards Gu Jianxi's body, making him feel as though he was in a desperate situation and was ambushed from all sides. As a martial artist who had walked out from a mountain of corpses and a sea of blood, the clown's attack only paused for a moment before he got rid of the influence. Such a scene wasn't only seen in illusions, he had also experienced it in reality. However, Lu Cheng seized the opportunity and detonated a small amount of Emperor Yen force. His body was like a rocket that was launched twice. He moved horizontally by 1 foot in the air and landed on the ground. Without giving Gu Jianxi any time to adjust his attack, he changed the seal with his hands again. He exhaled deeply and said, "All right." He landed mysteriously and connected heaven and earth. With a tap of his heel, Lu Cheng flew backwards at a speed so fast that his afterimages could be seen. He didn't take the opportunity to counterattack. Instead, he took the opportunity to widen the distance between them. This was because the Death Sect martial artists had to pay a certain price for their terrifying attacks. They were weaker in endurance battles. Seeing Lu Cheng closing in and quickly shrinking, Gu Jianxi's eyes remained cold. He raised his left hand, bent his fingers, and knocked heavily towards the void in front of him with his joints as though he was knocking on a door. Dong. Lu Cheng, who was retreating rapidly, felt his ice heart being hit by an invisible hammer. It shattered into pieces and surged violently. A strong sense of fear emerged. His body trembled slightly and stiffened. The first move of the Death Sect, Midnight Ghost knocks on the door. This move was executed smoothly by Gu Jianxi and didn't require much preparation. Furthermore, he had referenced the unique skills of the Ice Sect and made targeted improvements to counter the enemy heart-freezing move. Fear was like a tidal wave crazily slapping at Lu Cheng's will. However, he had been through a lot and managed to hold on. Once again he formed a forward. Without complimenting his voice, Lu Cheng merely changed his hand seals. With a momentum of no return, Lu Cheng suppressed the fear in his heart and formed the ice heart once again. At this moment, Gu Jianxi had already closed in like a ghost. With a shake of his right arm, his arm swelled and his fist swung sideways. Lu Cheng had just raised his arm to block when he suddenly sensed danger. A layer of ice formed on his right leg and he retracted it out of reflex. It wasn't until this moment that he realized that the clown was kicking from above. However, that kick was soundless and undetectable to his senses. The 7th move of the Death Sect, Shadowless Killing Kick. Bam! Before Gu Jianxi's fist landed on Lu Cheng's raised forearm, his left leg had already landed on Lu Cheng's whipped leg. The thick layer of ice shattered instantly, turning into grayish-white powder that dissipated into the air. It took a few seconds for it to melt. Bam! The clown's fist was blocked and stopped. However, Lu Cheng felt a chill invade his body. It ignored the normal flame force and made his arms feel as though they were temporarily dead. This was a double trap. Gu Jianxi had prepared it specifically for Lu Cheng, who had a premonition of danger. He had weakened the power of the Shadowless Killing Kick and enhanced his Yama force with the Undying Soul technique. Originally, the upper part was illusory while the lower part was solid. Now, the lower part was 70% and the upper part was 30%. Lu Cheng didn't panic when he lost feeling in his 2 arms. Instead, he twisted his waist and swung his right arm out. It was a single whip. At the same time, he took a step forward with both hands and feet. With a heavy step, he created a field of blazing faint purple flames. They turned into a wall of flames and pushed towards Gu Jianxi. It was the fire sect's burning mountain and evaporating lake technique. At this moment, Gu Jianxi revealed a stiff smile. Instead of retreating, he advanced. He didn't put up any more defenses and just turned his body to avoid the single whip. Bam! The purple wall of flames slammed into his legs and ignited them. However, Gu Jianxi seemed to have turned into a corpse. He had lost his sense of pain and didn't show any signs of stopping. His left hand shot out like a cobra and jabbed towards Lu Qing, who had already used up all his moves. He didn't slow down at all and seemed to have infused all his strength into it. At such a close distance, such an attack arrived in an instant. Lu Qing only had time to pull his body back and avoid the attack on his neck. Gu Jianxi's left index finger was pressed against Lu Qing's shoulder. Extreme danger was contained within. The ninth move of the Death Sect, Killer Strike, Final Smile. Lu Qing's mind raced. He looked at the clown's completely charred legs and the hair between his legs that was covered in red flames. He couldn't help but feel a twinge in his balls. I thought I was good at exchanging injuries for victory and was an expert in life and death battles. However, there's always someone better out there. There's always someone more ruthless. If this move of mine was a little more powerful. He gasped and stopped resisting. He understood that Gu Jianxi was taking the risk by relying on the uniqueness of the body of the dead and the strong self-healing ability of a physical invulnerability martial artist. Of course, if it was a life-and-death battle with his ruthlessness, he would have done the same even if he didn't have these, and the risk was extremely high. This was the clown Gu Jianxi. The corner of the referee's mouth twitched. He quickly raised his right hand and shouted, "Gu Jianxi wins." Bits of flames fell and the dark green covered the charred black, like fashionable trousers. Chapter 646. Hearing the referee's announcement, Lu Qing calmed his emotions and bowed. He turned and walked towards the entrance of the changing room at the edge of the stadium. He seemed to hear the sighs from across the mountains and rivers. Cuckoo Yin Shaoling and Brahmin must be very disappointed, even more so than me. Entering the aisle, Lu Qing took his phone from Amen. Just as he turned on the light, he saw Yanzhika's message. The girl said, "The clown is really giving it his all? Yeah, I didn't expect this. He's treating the arena battle like a life-and-death battle." Lu Qing sighed. He knew Gu Jianxi's fighting style very well, but he didn't expect him to be so aggressive after just a few rounds. He was ruthless to his opponent and even more ruthless to himself. Martial artists who practiced the unique skills of the Death Sect did have the weakness of not being able to last long. But the problem was that they had only fought for a short while. The clown was still far from his limit. He didn't have to risk his life like this. This was more of a life-and-death battle than a life-and-death battle. As for the safety of both parties, the referee wandering around the edge was only the host and witness. He wasn't in charge of such matters. It was all up to the judgment of the physical invulnerability mighty ones. In popular words, as a physical invulnerability mighty one, don't you know if you can block the opponent's attack and what kind of damage you will suffer? As for accidents caused by not being able to hold back, it was very rare for a physical invulnerability mighty ones. Even if it did happen, there was a high probability that the opponent would only be seriously injured and not killed. If someone deliberately made a mistake, there would be video evidence. Once confirmed, they would be the enemy of the entire world. Yanzhika followed with a sighing emoji. The clown's fans are resenting you. Resenting me for what? I didn't deliberately burn him down there. He was the one who ran into me. Lu Qing replied, annoyed and amused at the same time. Yanzhika laughed until tears came out. They resent you for not holding on long enough. If you had held on for a few more rounds, the clown would definitely have exposed himself. Lu Qing laughed and couldn't help but shake his head. His mood was inexplicably better. The depression from losing the match had dissipated. If there were miracles every time, it wouldn't be a miracle. Being able to enter the top 16 while surrounded by first pin and titled mighty ones was enough. Of course, this is only a temporary satisfaction. Wait until next year, I will take a step further. As for the King competition in December and the Superclass competition in early January, I won't participate in them. I'll leave more time to learn all the physical invulnerability chapters and solve all the problems I found in the Master Battle. Reinvigorated, Lu Qing sat on the sofa and watched the upcoming showdown between the strongest while chatting with Ku, who was on her way to the campus of Connecticut University. Halfway through, he switched to the group chat and tagged Peng Leyun and the others. It's time to consider what to eat. You adjusted so quickly. and Chaoyang seemed to have been paying attention to this all along. Soon he sighed with emotion. Against an opponent like the clown, the chances of the weak defeating the strong is very slim. But if the gap between the two sides isn't too big, then it's possible to set up a trap for the clown's desperate fighting style. Peng Liyun discussed the battle earlier with great interest. Yes, those who are good at swimming will drown, and those who are good at riding will fall. The strongest and most commonly used method is often the source of failure. Renli replied in a genteel manner. In the end, she added, my master just used the clown as a case study to educate me. After discussing for a while, Lu Qing saw the food pictures that little fairy had deliberately sent. He quickly emphasized in the group chat, shouldn't the focus of our discussion be what to eat? I know a food blogger who lives in Jianghu. Let me ask her. Peng Liyun seemed to have just remembered that there was a serious matter. You know a food blogger? Priest, which part of you looks like a foodie? Are you having an affair? Lu Qing asked in surprise. Peng Liyun answered seriously, back then when I was browsing Weibo I suddenly thought of some problems. I wasn't paying attention so my hand slipped and I followed her. I wanted to unfollow her immediately, but she sent me a private message excitedly, saying that she likes martial arts very much and has been following me all this time. I was too embarrassed to unfollow her. Later we would chat for a bit and share our Weibo posts. You don't have to say any more. An explanation is a cover-up, and a cover-up is the truth. Lu Qing teased Peng Liyun with an evil smile. I really don't. I don't know her that well. Peng Liyun quickly replied and seriously emphasized. Tiske priest is still an innocent little boy. When it comes to this kind of topic, the veteran would either change the topic and not dwell on it or joke with himself. Basically, he wouldn't explain seriously. Amidst his teasing, Lu Qing wisely stopped the topic and tagged in Chaoyang instead. Hipster, when is your flight? Tomorrow morning. And Chaoyang posted a screenshot of his flight ticket. Then let's set it for tomorrow night. Lu Qing made the final decision. At this time, Peng Liyun received a suggestion and related. She said that the high autumn crab is fat, and now is the time to eat crabs. The spicy crab in Jianghu has a unique flavor that is different from other places. It's pretty good. She recommends fresh taste. Sure, I'm fine with it. While typing, Lu Qing recalled the different spicy crab he had eaten. Saliva formed in his mouth. Me too. Renli didn't have much opinion on food. Oh yeah, there's something. Peng Liyun added a dazed expression. When I was asking, I mentioned that we were having a meal together. She wants to join in the fun and broaden her horizons. She said that she's a loyal fan of Lu Qing and wants to get an autograph and take a picture with her idol. If you guys aren't willing, I'll turn her down. I'm fine with it. You'll be responsible for the person you brought. Lu Qing smiled rather complacently. He didn't expect that a random person he met would be his fan. This feels pretty good. Then I'd like to see what kind of girl worships Lu Qing. And Chaoyang replied, amused. You make it sound as if worshipping me is weird. Lu Qing complained. Renli emphasized, she has to promise that she won't talk nonsense in the future. After some discussion, the matter was settled. The next day, Lu Qing woke up early to train and video chat with Yanjika. After his afternoon nap, he planned to train for another 3 hours. He turned over and sat up. He wasn't in a hurry to get off the bed because the tent was set up very badly. As a vigorous mighty one with physical invulnerability who hadn't had his wife by his side for more than a month, such reactions and occasional thoughts were normal. Taking a deep breath, he calmed his mind and controlled his body. Very quickly, Lu Qing returned to normal. He changed his clothes and headed to the training room attached to the hotel. At 6:30 p.m. he asked Aman to book a car. He arrived at Epine fresh and found a private room. Pushing the door open, he immediately saw a fresh beauty with medium-long straight hair wearing a thin white sweater and Peng Liyun, who was staring blankly at the girl beside him. Obviously there's no adultery. Lu Qing was slightly disappointed. The beauty with light makeup, clear eyes and pink lips stood up. She extended her hand with a smile. I'm Pingxi, your loyal fan. I like the miracles you've been creating. I like your struggle and perseverance. Her breasts were very impressive. When she stood up, she even trembled a little. Lu Qing didn't look sideways. He extended his right hand and lightly bumped it with Pengxi. He smiled and said, my pleasure. At this moment, Rin Li An and Chaoyang came in from outside. Pengxi introduced herself again. At the end, she said self-deprecatingly, I didn't expect you guys to be so close and private. When I heard about it, I was very curious. Plus, my idol is here, so I shamelessly came to get a free meal. I hope you guys don't mind. I won't tell anyone about what we talked about today. Girls who liked to make fun of themselves were never annoying. And Chaoyang nodded in agreement. Renli glanced at Peng Shi's breasts, then retracted her gaze. She looked a little lost. Then she sat in the seat furthest away from Peng Shi. After ordering spicy crabs, steamed hairy crabs, and many other signature dishes, Peng Shi took the initiative to start a conversation. She smiled and said, "I was browsing Weibo and saw a reporter suggesting to hold a Heavenly Sun competition for you guys, Wisdom King and Living Buddha, to choose the strongest Heavenly Sun. I feel that this is a provocation. What do you guys think?" "Not interesting." Renli shook her head. "I feel that our opponents aren't limited to such a small area. There's no point in talking about a Heavenly Sun competition when you're a physical invulnerability expert. If you're capable, you should get the title. My opponents aren't just Wisdom King, Living Buddha, and Priest. There's also the Clown, Spear King, Dong Bashin, Taoist Sword, Warrior Sage, Dragon King, and many other mighty ones." "That's right." Peng Liyun came back to his senses and nodded in agreement. And Chaoyang smiled bitterly. "I feel like I don't have the right to speak." As they chatted, the dishes were laid out. The steamer basket with the hairy crabs was also served. Peng Shi picked one up, dissected it skillfully, and divided it into different parts. She passed it to Peng Liyun. "Try it. Although it's not a local specialty, it's not bad." "Thank you," Peng Liyun replied politely. Then, Peng Shi dissected another one and passed it to Chaoyang. "Thank you. The taste is quite authentic." And Chaoyang, who was in Huahai, smiled. After that, Peng Shi picked up another hairy crab and dissected it skillfully. Then she placed it on Lu Cheng's plate. "My idol, try it." She smiled like a flower. Lu Cheng glanced at the crab on the plate and smiled subconsciously. "Thank you. You peeled it really well." After saying that, he suddenly froze. He felt that this sentence and this scene were very familiar. In an instant, bits and pieces came back to him. He remembered the scene from back then. Back then, Cuckoo was peeling the crab for him and teaching him the Yanshi routine. "Not bad. It's quite delicious." "Wrong answer. 0 points. You should say, you peeled it really well. That's the correct answer." The past was vivid in his mind. Every word entered his ears. For a moment, Lu Cheng was in a daze like Peng Liyun. Hearing his answer, Peng Shi was stunned for a moment. Then she smiled and said, "You're a little different from what I thought. One look and you can tell that he's the type that knows how to please girls." Lu Cheng collected his thoughts, smiled and shook his head. He focused on eating the crab. Peng Shi peeled one for Renli. Renli politely picked up the intact hairy crab in the steamer basket and threw it into the air. When the crab fell, Renli raised her finger and rapped it with a breeze. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. The crab shell fell piece by piece. The white crab meat and attractive crab roe flew out and fell on Peng Shi's plate, piled up neatly. "I'm not very good at peeling crabs. That's all I can do." Renli picked up the napkin and wiped her fingers. "Well, courtesy demands reciprocity." Peng Shi was a little dumbfounded. After a long time she smiled and said, "I want to shout, 'Coach, I want to learn martial arts.'" After filling their stomachs, it was late at night. Peng Shi started the car and proposed to send Lu Cheng and the others back to the hotel one by one. "My assistant is already here," Lu Cheng said perfunctorily. Peng Liyun and the others also politely refused. After everyone left, he put his hands in his pockets and wore glasses. He strolled on the road full of fallen leaves. After walking for a while, he remembered to take a taxi back. Chapter 647. In the hotel room, Lu Cheng stood by the floor-to-ceiling window, gazing at the starry river of lights in the distance. His mind was calm and relaxed as he thought about the crab and Yanjika. Many details, with the passage of time, only left a vague image, but the substance had already become instinctive, becoming a conditioned reflex. Usually one would not feel anything, but when the familiar scene hit, everything would suddenly become clear, vivid in one's mind, and one would feel the depth and meaning of the traces. These were the foundations of the building. He quietly watched for a while and calculated the time when the girls' class ended. He picked up his phone, typed a line, and silently deleted it. After 3 times, he opened his mouth with a bitter smile. "There's something I don't know if I should tell you. If I tell you, I'm afraid you'll feel sad and pressured. If I don't tell you, I'm afraid you'll think I've become cold and not passionate enough." Yenjika was packing up her books and moving to another classroom. She suddenly saw this line and replied with a confused expression. "What's the matter? Just tell me. I'm mentally strong." "What's wrong with Cheng?" Lu Cheng's lips curled up slightly. He typed word by word. "It's about how I miss you very much." Yenjika was speechless. Her lips pursed into a smile. Half puzzled and half happy, she asked, "Why do you suddenly miss me?" "When I had a meal with Hipster and the others, the priest brought a girl over. She was a food blogger and very good at peeling crabs. She peeled crabs for everyone. At that time my reply was, 'Thank you, you peeled them very well. I remember you taught me this.'" Lu Qing described what had happened in a concise and comprehensive manner. He didn't say why he missed her, only that he remembered it. "You've mastered it well." Yenjika felt her heart soften. All her emotions were settled. The 4 words, "I miss you very much," were no longer empty. They had concrete and deep support. Without waiting for Lu Qing to reply, she added, "Yesterday I saw a black junior wearing a feather coat and a star crown in the corridor. This has become a trend in school, so I miss you very much too. Why didn't you say so before?" Lu Qing understood what she was implying. Yenjika replied, proudly looking at the sky expression, "I'm just worried that someone will be impulsive and directly book a flight here. In the past it would definitely be like this. Now I can only enter the country once every half a year. Furthermore, they couldn't use it for more than 10 days at a time. This was the restriction imposed on physical invulnerability experts." "You're right." Yenjika sent an emoji of sitting in a daze. Suddenly she felt an urge to take out her notebook and timetable and look through her schedule. She wanted to go back to China for the weekend and give someone a surprise. In certain matters, she had always possessed great courage and a strong drive for action. After flipping through it again and again, her expression suddenly fell. This was because in the first year of learning from the master, her schedule was packed. There were too many investigations and research to complete on the weekends. This was also the way she had chosen to graduate early. So, she stood up and turned into a nearby public restroom. Standing in front of the sink, she took off her black-rimmed glasses and splashed cold water on her face. Raising her head, she looked at her beautiful face in the mirror. Yenjika suddenly reached out and pressed the corners of her eyes. Sticking out her tongue, she made a face for herself. This was her favorite face when she was young. "It's all your fault." She stared at the opposite, and muttered. After a few days, the main competition of the master battle came to an end. Warrior sage Chen Donglu had obtained the right to challenge Dragon King. The 2 of them would have another showdown during the spring festival. After flying back to Huadu, Lu Qing didn't rest that day. After a slight adjustment, he instructed Amen to inform the driver to pick him up at the villa. It was 2 in the afternoon and Connecticut was quiet. It would be a waste if he didn't use this time to practice martial arts. Furthermore, after the master battle, he had a lot of questions to answer. At 2:50 p.m., the luxurious and spacious nanny van stopped at the entrance of the villa by Xiaopei Lake. Lu Qing sat in the back and glanced at Amen, who hadn't put down her luggage. He smiled and said, "You go back first and have a good rest. I don't have anything to do today. I'll just train for 2 or 3 hours. Just let old Zhao wait." Old Zhao was the driver, Zhao Zhenhua. Amen shook her head with a radiant smile. "I can rest at the club and I don't have to cook or order takeout." "That's good." Lu Qing didn't insist. He leaned back and closed his eyes as though he was resting. Seeing this, Amen carefully took out a book from her bag and started reading seriously. She would take notes on her phone from time to time. After spending some time with the assistance of other physical invulnerability mighty ones, she had learned how to learn by herself and not waste time. This also stemmed from a small obsession in her heart. Although no one would badmouth her in front of her, there would always be people gossiping behind her back, thinking that she had sold her body to become a professional assistant. As for who she sold her body to, no one would dare to say it out loud, but the answer was self-evident. Because of this, the joy of her change in life lessened. She didn't even share it with her parents and best friends. She only told them that she had been promoted, got a raise, and was shining brightly in an important position in the club. "I want to be a truly outstanding assistant." Amen clenched her fist. In the stable car, which barely shook, she would read a book or put on her earphones to watch related videos. Due to a car accident, half of the road was blocked. Lu Qing took half an hour to reach the club and the exclusive training ground. Other than the public areas, there were 10 secret spaces, each sealed by a metal door. This allowed each physical invulnerability mighty one to enjoy their own space and not disturb each other. As soon as he pushed open the door of the training ground, he saw a figure standing upright. He was wearing a navy blue martial arts suit, standing in the bright afternoon sun. Although his face was full of sweat and he couldn't hide his tiredness, he had the temperament of an immovable mountain. This was the Dragon King Qin Chitao. Even though the other physical invulnerability mighty ones in the club weren't around, he didn't relax his standards. As though he had already sensed Lu Cheng's approach, Qin Chitao wasn't surprised. He only nodded slightly as a form of greeting. He strode towards the corridor leading to the volcano laboratory. When he brushed past Lu Cheng, he paused for a few seconds and said sternly, "During this time, practice 9 rotations of 5 flames again." Ha! Lu Cheng was a little confused. The 9 rotations of 5 flames. Descent of the Sun was an external invulnerability secret art. Due to its compatibility with the cosmic style, Lu Cheng didn't dare to say that he was comparable to the Dragon King. However, in terms of precision and ease of control, he was superior to veteran fire sect mighty ones like Optimus Prime Longzhen. It was a work he was proud of. Why do I have to practice again? Qin Chitao put his hands behind his back and said in a deep and heavy voice, "You relied on cultivation techniques to omit the complicated control techniques in 9 rotations of 5 flames. These things won't help you better use 9 rotations of 5 flames, but they can improve your control of various flames. This is the foundation of the basics. Some shortcuts can be taken, but some things can't be saved." As soon as he finished speaking, the Dragon King strode forward again and walked past Lu Cheng. The size and shape of each step were the same as the previous one. It was as though he was copying and pasting. Lu Cheng was stunned for a moment. He quickly understood that he had almost neglected the most important foundation. He hurriedly turned around and saluted the Dragon King's back. "Thank you for your guidance, Senior." Qin Chitao didn't turn around, stop, or look back. It was as though he hadn't said anything. After watching the Dragon King disappear around the corner of the corridor, Lu Cheng left the training ground and changed his route to the physical invulnerability training room. He started practicing 9 rotations of 5 flames. Descent of the Sun again. After an entire afternoon of hard training, Lu Cheng used a towel to wipe the water droplets off his forehead. He changed into fresh clothes and headed to the restaurant to eat, just like he did most of the time in Huaqing. At 7 in the evening he returned to the villa. After sending Amen and the driver Zhao Zhenhua away, Lu Cheng chatted with Kai Zongming, Jiang Fei, and the rest on QQ until Little Fairy finished her morning exercise. "Cheng, before I went to bed last night, I saw an invitation for a luxurious tour group. It's going to Huaqing," Yanjika said excitedly. "So?" Lu Cheng asked back, pretending to be confused. "Cuckoo will only be back during the winter break. I'll be the tour guide then." "Seriously?" Yanjika said. "You've been in Huaqing for a few months. Haven't you thought of bringing Uncle and Auntie here for some fun? Didn't you say that they had a hard time and had almost never traveled before? Sign them up for a tour group and let them have a look around Huaqing. They won't be staying at a hotel but at home. Amen can get a driver to pick them up. You don't have to go through so much trouble. Just spend time with them when you're home every day." Lu Cheng was stunned for a while. Who exactly is their child? I've never thought of such a thing. I was thinking of going back home for a few days in December. Men aren't as attentive as girls in this aspect. Tisk, it's good that you have such self-awareness. Ask Uncle and Auntie if they're free from November 27th to December 7th. The tour group is only for 7 days. Leave 2 days before and after to let them get familiar with our house. We can even make you a dinner of love anyway. You can book the plane tickets yourself," Yanjika said proudly. Lu Cheng's lips curled up a little. Then he emphasized with a smirk, "Call them Mom and Dad." Chapter 648. After chatting with Yanjika, Lu Cheng checked the time and immediately called his mother, Qi Fang. "Didn't you just call back to Huaqing at noon? What's the matter?" Qi Fang was not at all happy to receive her son's call. Instead, she was full of disdain. The TV series she was following had its finale today. Lu Cheng forgot to explain the cause and effect and blurted out, "Mom, can you and Dad find time from November 27th to December 7th? Why are you asking this?" Qi Fang asked in surprise. She shifted her gaze from the TV screen to Lu Jisheng beside her. "Who wants to sign you up for a tour in Huaqing? You don't have to buy anything. Haven't I settled down here for a few months? I've been so busy practicing martial arts that I forgot to ask you two to come visit and live here for a while. It was Ku's reminder that reminded me of this." "Seriously, ha?" Lu Cheng laughed dryly, trying to belittle himself and elevate his wife. Qi Fang was stunned for a few seconds as she digested the information. Then she smiled and said, "You are not even as filial as a daughter. Jika is such a good girl. I always wanted to give birth to a daughter. How sweet. Who knew I would give birth to a debt collector like you? But if it really is a daughter, I wonder how happy your second uncle and the others will be. Mom, tell me if you're free first." Lu Qing quickly stopped his mother from changing the topic and praised himself. Without a son like me, would there be such a good daughter-in-law? You're still breathing? Qi Fang had seen this line several times recently and subconsciously used it. I'm fine with anything. I can ask for leave at any time. But I have to ask your dad. Hey Qing, you don't have to sign up for a tour. Your dad and I will stay here for a few days to see you and just wander around. She asked Lu Qing with her eyes as she spoke. Lu Jisheng was confused and did not understand what was going on. He also did not know how to answer. His face was full of confusion. It's okay. Don't I usually train at the club? You'll be bored at home and the surroundings are relatively quiet. There are no neighbors. Even if there are, you won't be able to understand Guangnan dialect. It's better to drink morning tea with the tour guide, try Guangnan cuisine, eat seafood, and visit interesting places. If you don't understand something, he'll translate and solve it. Everything will be easy and simple. Lu Qing didn't choose his words carefully. He just said whatever came to his mind. You and my dad haven't traveled before except for Gaofun. Let's give it a try. That's to watch your competition? Your father used to run around a lot, but he was just working for others. Qi Fang pondered for a moment, and her thoughts were stirred. Lu Yanwei is doing well with Erzi, isn't he? He's getting married in the spring festival, so your second uncle and the others can relax. During the National Day holiday, he went to Kaiyun province for a trip. When he came back, he showed off to the people in the factory for quite a while. That factory had been closed down for many years, but Qi Fang was still used to calling her former neighbors that way. That's right. They're all going on a trip. You can't fall behind. Lu Qing tried to provoke his mother. Qi Fang took a deep breath and said, All right, it's settled then. You're not going to ask my dad? Lu Qing was stunned. He has no objections. What's the point of saving up so many years of leave? Qi Fang answered firmly. Lu Jisheng, who was beside her, went from confused to dumbfounded. That's not what you said just now. Lu Qing complained in his mind but didn't beat around the bush. He said directly, All right, I'll get Ku to sign up. Mom, remember to take a picture of you and my dad's ID cards and send it to me on WeChat. I'll help you book all kinds of tickets. Okay. Hey Qing, go ahead and sign up. Don't let Ku spend money. Her family is well off, but we're not poor either, right? You're already a mighty one with physical invulnerability. You're not married yet, so you have to be careful in this aspect, Qi Fang reminded him. Mom, don't worry. I'll give her the money. Lu Qing replied, amused. Not to mention the close relationship between Ku's Alipay and his own, the most important financial power was in her hands. Her credit cards and online payment accounts were now tied to his own bank card. She was also in charge of family finances. There wasn't much discussion. After they got married, she took the initiative to do it herself. Qi Fang was relieved. Then she said anxiously, Your dad and I have never been on a plane before, so we don't understand. What should we do when the time comes? It's very simple. I'll teach you when you get to the airport. You have to trust my dad's IQ. Hearing Qi Fang's question, Lu Qing suddenly sighed. Dad and Mom had been busy all their lives worrying about their family. They hadn't really enjoyed themselves, and this was even their first time on a plane. If it really didn't work out, he could ask Amin to accompany them throughout the journey. After hanging up the phone, Lu Qing reported the situation to Yanjika. She immediately chose the most expensive and best tour. She even chatted with the customer service and made many requests, not minding adding money. Inviting her parents-in-law to Huaqing was a good thing. However, if she was fussy about things like cost-performance ratio and made the trip unhappy, it would be a bad thing to do with good intentions. It was better not to do it. Since she was going to do it, she had to do it perfectly. While Lu Qing was thinking of adding a burden for Amin, the assistant was standing at the entrance of Tiandu Garden, waiting for the arrival of her best friend. Her best friend was called Wang Zi. After graduation, she returned to her hometown to work in the provincial capital. Today, she was on a business trip to Huaqing and wanted to stay for 3 nights. This way she could chat with her best friend under candlelight and chat about girls' topics. At the same time, she could save on the travel expenses of staying in a hotel. When the time came, she could get an invoice and turn it into income. 10 minutes later, a taxi stopped. Wang Zi, with her curly hair, pushed open the door and got out. Amin hurried over and helped her take out the luggage from the trunk. Wang Zi, with her thick eyebrows and bright eyes, sized up her best friend a few times and said in surprise, Man, you've become prettier. Your skin is fairer too. Amin had always been pretty. However, she didn't know how to take care of her skin when she was in university. She often participated in outdoor activities, so her skin had become a healthy wheat color. I've been more diligent in taking care of myself recently. Amin brushed her hair and smiled humbly. Girls are more attentive to other girls and pay more attention to details. What brand are you using? The whitening effect is so good? Wang Zi asked with great interest. Amin dragged the luggage and spoke as she walked. She didn't hide anything. Wow, this is so expensive. Wang Zi couldn't help but look sideways at her best friend. She teased her with her unique frankness. You really got a promotion and a raise. As they spoke, they entered the elevator and arrived at Amin's residence. 2 floors, 2 apartments. This neighborhood is pretty high-end, Wang Zi said casually. Amin smiled and said, the buildings over there are even more high-end. 1 floor for 1 apartment. Actually, it's 2 floors for 1 apartment. As she spoke, she opened the door and invited Wang Zi in. The decorations are pretty luxurious. Wang Zi looked around and didn't say anything. She changed the topic and asked, Man, which room are you staying in? Your roommate won't mind if you take me in, right? She was originally carefree and didn't care much about this, but now she was suddenly a little cautious. No, I live alone, Amin answered concisely. Wang Zi was stunned for a few seconds and blurted out, How much is that? This is Huaqing. The rent is very expensive, and this is a high-end neighborhood. Amin was stumped by the question. After thinking for a while, she smiled and said, I don't know. The club assigned me a room after I got promoted. I don't have to pay. Wang Zi's mouth was half open. She looked around and pretended to ask exaggeratedly, Man, is your club still recruiting? Isn't this treatment a little too good? After joking around for a while, Amin helped Wang Zi pack her luggage. I have to hug you to sleep tonight. Wang Zi sat cross-legged on her best friend's bed. She said half curiously and half instigated, Isn't being an assistant in Longhu Club very popular? Those inhuman mighty ones all have a high status as long as they change careers. The deputy chief of our province's police department is also an inhuman. If you have a good relationship with them, you might be able to live a good life in the future. It's useless. The members of the assistant team take turns to serve. Unless you purposely try to curry favor with them and spend a lot of effort to curry favor with them. Also, who knows how many years it will take for them to come in handy, Amin explained with a smile. Wang Zi didn't harp on this matter. After a few words they talked about their college roommates. For example, a certain someone went back to her hometown for a blind date when she had a boyfriend in Huahai. She even slept with him and got pregnant, so they had to break up in a hurry. For example, a certain someone got married right after graduation and her child could already walk. For example, a certain someone entered a certain company and had already bought a house with a down payment. Relying on her youthful vigor, Amin stayed up for half the night and went to work as usual the next day. As Lu Cheng had to leave early in the afternoon to try out an old shop, she followed him back home at around 5 p.m. to catch up on sleep. Just as she entered the house, she saw the beautifully dressed Wang Zi running around in circles anxiously. What's wrong? Amin asked with concern. Boss insisted that I invite a client to Jianghu. That's a high-end shop, but the seats were all booked 2 days ago. He didn't know to say so earlier and just did as he pleases. No, I must change the place. Wang Zi complained about her stubborn boss. Jianghu? Mr. Lu had been there before and the reviews were pretty good. It was barely considered high-end. Amin thought for a while and said, Don't worry, Guzi. I'll help you book it. Wang Zi's nickname came from her surname. You're going to book it? Wang Zi was stunned. Didn't you say that the seats were all booked? I know the manager there. Amin answered with a smile as she took out her phone and searched for a number. She met this person when she was helping Mr. Lu book a table. When the call was connected, she politely explained the whole story. The other side immediately said straightforwardly, Miss Amin's business is my business. Just tell your friend to come over and tell him your name. Thank you. I'll definitely treat you to a meal later. Amin said gratefully. The person laughed and said, You're welcome. I know you're busy and have to follow Mr. Lu around every day. After hanging up the phone, Amin turned to Wang Zi and said, All right, you just need to report my name. Really? Wang Zi still didn't quite believe it. Since when could Amin's name be used as a signboard in such a high-end event? At 7 p.m., she changed into a long dress and waited for the customer at the entrance of Jianghu. Along the way, she saw a grand sight that made her feel a little ashamed. Looking at the waiters lined up neatly to welcome her, Wang Zi said nervously, We have booked a reservation. We made a reservation. Amin made the reservation. Miss Amin booked it? A waiter smiled brightly and extended his hand. This way please. He led Wang Zi and her customer up the elevator and into a quiet and elegant private room. Outside, the river was flowing and the lights were reflected. It was dazzling and dreamy. Miss Wang, you seem to have a lot of connections in Huacheng. The customer looked around and praised sincerely. As a local, he knew the importance of this matter. Wang Zi had been in a daze ever since she got into the elevator. A thought kept echoing in her mind. The assistant of Longhu Club is so awesome? P.S. Mother-in-law is hospitalized for a minor surgery. I have to go and take a look. It's midnight. Chapter 649. At around 10 p.m., Wang Zi carried her bag and returned to Aumann's place. She saw her best friend with her hair down and an electric toothbrush in her hand. She looked like she was about to wash up and sleep. How did it go? Aumann asked casually. Pretty good. We've reached an agreement of intent. I can go back and get a bonus. It's all thanks to you today. Wang Zi replied calmly with a smile. She then asked casually, why are you sleeping so early? Isn't it the weekend tomorrow? Do you have to work overtime? I don't have weekends. My boss is busy and has to go out at any time. That's why I have to keep the same schedule as him. Aumann didn't try to hide it and laughed at herself. Of course, for the past few months, Mr. Liu had chosen to train in the village training field on the weekends. He didn't go out and didn't have anything else to do. He allowed himself to enjoy 2 days off every week like a normal employee. He's really a heartwarming boss. Boss, aren't you the assistant of the Longhu Club? Wang Zi seized the opportunity to ask. Aumann pondered for a few seconds before answering frankly, didn't I get promoted? I'm now Mr. Liu's personal assistant. Lu Qing. Wang Zi was stunned at first. She then blurted out with a sharp voice, Physical Invulnerability Mighty One. You're the personal assistant of a Physical Invulnerability Mighty One? Even though she didn't pay much attention to martial arts, she had often heard of the names of Physical Invulnerability Mighty Ones, not to mention the Heavenly Son of the Era who was in the limelight recently. Yeah. Aumann nodded solemnly. Wang Zi was stunned for a few seconds before exhaling. She muttered to herself, no wonder Man is so respected. She's the personal assistant of a Physical Invulnerability Mighty One. Why didn't you say so earlier? Wang Zi came to her senses and couldn't help but probe. Aumann smiled bitterly. You don't know. I felt like I'd won the lottery. I couldn't believe it and felt like I was dreaming. It was really no different from a dream. I've been fearful for the past few months and didn't have confidence. I was afraid that I'd be fired after showing off. I wanted to tell you guys after I settled down. You were randomly selected? Wang Zi was full of curiosity. Yes. Recalling the past, Aumann still found it unreal. I've always tried my best to perform well in front of Mr. Liu, but he was always very polite. How should I put it? He kept a clear distance from me. When he made the great leap and became a physical invulnerability expert, he picked me as his assistant. I was stunned. Do you know? I was so happy. The feelings that she had held in for months gushed out at once. No special interaction? Wang Zi was in the same state of disbelief as Aumann back then. She kept feeling that there were some unknown details. It was impossible for a pie to fall from the sky, right? Even if it really fell, why didn't it hit someone else? Why did it have to hit Man? She didn't think that there was anything seductive in it. Instead, she thought of some chicken soup stories about interviews such as how to straighten a broom after entering the door. Well, there is one thing. Didn't he leave the club with serious injuries? I've sent him messages of encouragement before, including on New Year's and birthdays, but they weren't mass messages. They were specially edited. That's the only one. Aumann pondered and answered. Good people have good karma. Lu Qing would definitely choose an assistant with good character, not someone who flatters the powerful and tramples on the weak. After a moment of silence, Wang Zi felt that she had found the answer. Then she asked in a gossipy mood, what kind of person is he in real life? Aumann laughed and said, I have to keep it a secret for my boss. That's the responsibility of an assistant. Well, what I can reveal is that he's really hardworking and down to earth. He's also a man who takes care of the feelings of others. It's a pity that he's already taken, Wang Zi teased casually. Then she asked, how much do you get a month now? Are there any special benefits? Since she knew the status of an inhuman, she wasn't unfamiliar with the lofty status of a physical invulnerability expert. And as the personal assistant of a physical invulnerability expert, Man wouldn't be bad either. Looking at the free 3 rooms and 1 living room, and how she could solve a problem that she couldn't solve with just a phone call, it wasn't hard to imagine. Amin gave a brief description which made Wang Zi gasp in admiration. At the end of the story, Wang Zi took a deep breath and said half-jokingly, "When I go back I can brag like them. What about my friends and classmates? You're much more awesome than what they said." Amin couldn't help but laugh. Seeing that her best friend's attitude didn't change fundamentally, she felt relieved and relieved. As Lu Qing trained hard day after day, the end of November came in the blink of an eye. At 8:30 p.m. on the 26th, he took the nanny van and arrived punctually at Huaqing Heishui Airport to pick up his parents' flight. More than 40 minutes later, he saw Qi Fang and Lu Jisheng with his sharp eyes. They were wearing down jackets to resist the cold of Xioshan, and they were looking blankly at the people who were wearing thin and light clothes. Lu Qing smiled and went up to them. While describing the weather in Huaqing, he took the luggage from the old couple. At this moment, Amin and the driver Zhao Zhenhua rushed over and took the luggage. "Hey girl, let him take it. He's strong," Qi Fang said politely. "Annie, this is my job. Do you want me to lose my job?" Amin replied jokingly. "This is my assistant, Amin. This is my driver, old Zhao." Lu Qing introduced them casually. Lu Jisheng pushed his gold-rimmed glasses and said knowledgeably, "You're acting like a boss, just like Fatty Gua. But he calls you secretary, not assistant. How can Fatty Gua compare? The last time Qing came home, he was stuttering when he saw him." Qi Fang retorted her husband out of habit. As they chatted and laughed, the family of three arrived at the underground parking lot and got into the nanny van. Seeing the light brown leather sofa, the bar with famous wine, the refrigerator with drinks, and the spacious space, Lu Jisheng and Qi Fang were shocked and became a little restrained. Under Amin's arrangement, they sat down without saying much. Lu Qing saw this and shook his head with a smile. He opened the refrigerator door and took out a bottle of Xioshan specialty lychee-flavored soda for his mother. He poured a cup of tea for his father and then sat opposite them. He leaned forward and tried to find a topic to talk about. "Dad, Mom, how was it? How was the flight?" Qi Fang thought for a while and said unhappily, "Your dad is really something. He says he's one of the 8 great Vajras, but he doesn't follow the rules. Before boarding the plane, he took the boarding pass and passed the security check, saying that it was a small matter. But when the plane took off, he kept grabbing the sides and refused to move. He refused to eat, drink, or go to the bathroom. His body was so tense. Didn't I get better later?" Lu Jisheng defended himself with dissatisfaction. There were outsiders here. He glanced at Amin and saw that she was focused on looking out of the window. He was slightly relieved and then exposed Qi Fang. "Your mom is the one who's crazy. She even went to the economy class to go to the bathroom. She counted how many rows there are and asked me to help her calculate how many people can sit on the plane. Is it interesting?" "Of course it's interesting. I can't just sit on a plane in the dark like this, can I? What should I say if they ask me when I go back to Xioshan?" Qi Fang glanced at Lu Jisheng. Listening to the old couple bickering, Lu Qing smiled and added a few words from time to time. The family was happy and harmonious, completely shattering the previous restraint. The car drove back to Xiape Lake and entered Lu Cheng's villa. Qi Fang took a look at the decorations and fell silent. After Amin and old Zhao left, Lu Qing led them around and identified the room. Only then did Qi Fang and Lu Jisheng relax. "So big, but a little lonely." Qi Fang sighed casually. She suddenly felt that her son was truly independent and moved away from his original family. She was a little happy and a little sad. "Lonely? You can stay longer." Lu Qing replied with a smile. No, your dad and I can't leave Xioshan. We've become lonely old people here. You and Zhika haven't had a child. Sai, no, if you have a child it's better to ask her mom to help. Mother and daughter can talk about anything. Conflicts can be resolved in a second. I've seen a lot of dramas like this. Qi Fang suddenly started rambling. "Mom, I just mentioned it, but you've already thought about the child." Lu Qing shook his head in amusement and changed the topic. The old couple rushed all the way and quickly washed up and went to bed. After the lights went out, the room became dark. The wind blew outside the window and the sound of water was soft in the distance. Qi Fang opened her eyes and stared blankly at the ceiling. After a long while, she suddenly sighed and said, "Cheng has really grown up. He's a man with his own family." Lu Jisheng's mouth slightly curved. After a long silence, he replied with a smile and a sigh, "Because we're old." Chapter 650. Lu Jisheng and Qi Fang arrived at the Sky Shadow Ligong Hotel in the nanny van and met up with the members of the Pure Play group. In the past 2 days, Lu Qing had reduced his training time and accompanied his parents around Xiaopei Lake. He took them to several shopping malls and bought a lot of clothes suitable for the season. At first, the old couple wasn't too willing to spend so much money. However, the clothes they brought were obviously too thick and wouldn't fit in outside, especially when Lu Qing deliberately didn't mention the weather in Huaqing. They had no choice but to reluctantly accept it. Later on, Qi Fang was immersed in the shopping atmosphere. She didn't need much persuasion from her son and automatically began to choose. This made Lu Qing happy to see her succeed. Occasionally he would interact with Yan Zhika about which ones looked good, which ones were average and which ones were unique. Needless to say, people rely on clothes. Today Lu Jisheng and Qi Fang looked brand new and walked more briskly. When they entered the hotel lobby, they were almost dazzled by the magnificent decorations. Then they saw a tall and thin man waving his phone over and smiling warmly. "Uncle Lu, Aunt Qi, right? I'm the tour guide Xiao Qin Zuanxian. I called you before." Yes. Hello. We're not late, right? Lu Jisheng had traveled extensively before and spoke in Mandarin with a very Xing province accent. "It's still early. Let's go." Qin Zuanxian led the old couple to the lobby rest area and pointed to a short, plump girl with thick eyebrows and thick lips. "This is my partner, Qin Ran. We're in charge of the itinerary of the 10 VIPs. 10 tourists and 2 tour guides? Wasn't this too extravagant?" Qi Fang was secretly speechless. Although she hadn't traveled before in recent years with the development of society, many of her relatives and friends had related experiences. Her casual chats had instilled a lot of basic knowledge into her. Of course, what she didn't know was that if it wasn't for the fact that Yan Zhika felt that it was too lonely with only the old couple, she might have booked private service. "Okay, everyone's here." Qin Ran clapped her hands and said in a soft voice, "Our first itinerary today is to go to Huaqing restaurant to enjoy morning tea. This is a habit of Guangnan people. Since we're here, we can't miss it." After a heart-pounding introduction, the group of pure players took a bus and passed through the streets and alleys. They arrived at the Huaqing restaurant, which happened to be filled with large round tables. "The people here really like this." Qi Fang glanced at the bustling hall and whispered to Lu Jisheng. "Didn't you watch TV?" Lu Jisheng teased. He remembered that from a few years before his son was born until he was in the 3rd or 4th grade of elementary school, his wife especially liked TVB dramas. "How can you take all the TV series seriously?" Qi Fang glared at him, twisting words and forcing logic. At this time, steamers were placed on the table one by one, and the aroma of all kinds of snacks filled the air. Because there were outsiders around, Qi Fang did not eat as quickly as she usually did. She only picked the food in front of her. An old man sitting next to the couple heard their discussion. He picked up his tea, took a sip, and asked with a smile, "What's the matter? Are you from Xing province?" His hair was almost completely white, but he was very hale and hearty. His dressing was very classy. "Yes." Lu Jisheng nodded and answered. Qi Fang did not speak Mandarin, so she felt a little inferior in this kind of communication. She only listened and did not speak. "Did your child sign you up for the group?" The old man asked again with a smile. He casually picked up a steamed chicken claw with abalone juice and placed it on the plate. Lu Jisheng swallowed the shrimp dumpling in his mouth and said, "Yes, he signed us up for the group online. We don't know much about this." "I see that you didn't stay in this hotel?" The old man looked like a businessman who liked to find topics to talk about. "My child is in Huaqing. He stays at his place at night and comes to meet us in the morning. He thinks that he is too busy and is afraid that we have nothing to do at home, so he formed a group for us to travel around." Lu Jisheng deliberated over his words. The old man chuckled and said, "Same for us. My child signed us up for the group. I feel that my child's mother and I have been busy our whole lives. Now that they have taken over, we can relax and take advantage of the fact that our legs are still good to see more and enjoy life. We can't just focus on working hard." He pointed to a woman in her 50s who was obviously plump but wore high-end clothes and bags. "Don't talk about this nonsense." The woman smiled reservedly. After chatting for a while, everyone was a little more familiar with each other after breakfast. Qin Zuanxian kept running around and asking about their well-being, trying to make every tourist feel comfortable. "We're going to one of the 8 sites of Huaqing next." Qin Ran saw that they had enough rest and quickly got up to introduce the group and organize the group. After a day of travel, the tired crowd returned to the Sky Shadow Li Palace Hotel and listened to the 2 tour guides in the lobby about the general arrangements for the next day. "Old Lu, are you going back to your child's house?" The old man named Xiao Ankang was in good spirits and didn't follow the others to take the elevator to rest. Instead he stayed in the lobby with his wife and chatted with Lu Jisheng, Qifang and the two tour guides. Yes, he asked the driver to come and pick us up. As soon as Lu Jisheng finished speaking, Qifang's phone rang. She picked it up and nodded twice. She looked at the few people opposite her and smiled in a modified Xing province dialect. The car is here, we'll go first. Okay, Uncle Lu and Qi, be careful on the road. The tour guide, Qin Zuanxian, got up and sent the old couple to the door. Xiaoan Kong and his wife and Qin Ran stood in place and waved goodbye. Their eyes followed the Lu couple until they reached the glass revolving door. A silver-gray nanny van slowly stopped. Xiaoan Kong's pupils shrank and he blurted out, "Military tag." It was a very special military tag with a very small serial number. Before he could finish his sentence, he saw the car door open. A young woman in office attire stepped out and respectfully helped Lu Jisheng and Qifang into the car. Before the door closed, the Lu couple turned and waved at Qin Zuanxian and the three people in the lobby who were looking at them. Xiaoan Kong and the rest numbly raised their arms in response. The gap gradually disappeared. The silver-gray nanny van started up again and disappeared from their sight. Old Lu's family isn't simple. After a long while, Xiaoan Kong sighed. But they didn't seem to be anything special at all. 7 to 8 days of touring Huaqing passed by in the blink of an eye. Lu Jisheng and Qifang stayed for a few more days. Feeling bored, they flew back to Xioshan as if they were fleeing for their lives. Lu Qing started counting down the days until his little fairy's winter break. Just as he had mastered all the physical invulnerability chapters of the Ice Sect and Fire Sect, he received a message from the military. Lin Ke, who was in a war-torn zone, has gone missing. P.S. Came back late, so this chapter has fewer words. Chapter 651. Lin Ke is missing? Missing in the war-torn zones? Lu Qing, who had just finished his training and was resting on the sofa, suddenly straightened his back. His slightly muddled mind suddenly cleared up, as though someone had splashed a bucket of ice water on him. Following that, worry, anxiety, and other emotions came one after another, filling up his thoughts. It made him forget to condense the ice heart and remain calm. Missing in the war-torn zones is often equivalent to death. He quickly typed out a reply and inquired about the specific situation. While waiting, he felt like he couldn't sit still. He stood up abruptly and paced around the spacious room. Many images of the past flashed through his mind. Lin Ke, who said sorry painfully when he lost to Zhou Jingquan. Lin Ke, who had a unique dry sense of humor. Lin Ke, who was cold on the outside but proud on the inside. Lin Ke, who had awakened his supernatural ability prematurely and severely injured Peng Leyun. He smiled innocently and begged with, "I've tried my best. I'll leave the rest to you." He wasn't just his brother-in-law. He was also a friend who had worked hard, struggled, suffered, and experienced ecstasy together. After a few seconds, the military contact sent a detailed report. Lin Ke has been missing in Tigny City, Tallinn for more than 48 hours. Confirmed by a physical invulnerability expert who majored in the unique arts of the Plague Sect, he's not dead yet. His exact whereabouts are unknown. The sky-leaning sword and 7-star couple from Shushan study are on their way. Lu Qing glanced over and found the main point. He felt much more at ease. At the same time, he made a decision. He would apply for leave and head to the war-torn zones to help search for Lin Quebec. In the past, he probably wouldn't have done this because he wasn't strong enough. Blindly helping would be a waste of manpower and resources. But now, he had made the great leap and achieved physical invulnerability. He had even mastered all his martial arts. Regardless of whether he was a relative or a friend, he had to go. After making up his mind, he furrowed his brows and felt troubled. Should I tell Ku about this? If I tell her now, she'll be worried all the time. Days will feel like years. She'll be mentally tormented and her daily life will be affected. But if I keep it from her and tell her after the results are out, I'll have to make up a lie to cover it up. This is something I've made a promise and I don't want to do unless it's to surprise her. From Ku's perspective, with her personality and mindset, she'll definitely be able to accept it. She doesn't want to be kept a secret, especially from the person who's closest to her. A husband and wife should be able to share and share. He switched to the interface where he was chatting with Yenjika. He chose his words carefully and said, "Cuckoo, I have to go to the war-torn zones." It was past 4 in the morning in Kingstown. The girl was still asleep, and the news sank like a stone in the ocean. Lu Qing didn't wait for a reply. As he lamented about the time difference, he opened the door and headed for Empress Luo's office. She happened to be here today, so there was no need to call. As he passed by the elevator, Lu Qing saw the door of the sedan chair and the carriage slowly open. Walking out was Optimus Prime Long Zhen, covered in blood, charred and grime. He must have failed in his challenge to the Dragon King and got a good beating. Lu Qing nodded thoughtfully. If it was in the past he would definitely laugh at the other party. But now he was not in the mood at all. After a silent greeting, he went to Ning Zitong's door and knocked 3 times. After getting permission he pushed the door open and entered. Lu Qing briefly explained what had happened to Lin Ke and then brought up the matter of applying for leave. You don't have to. Ning Zitong frowned slightly. Our physical invulnerability experts are required to cooperate with the military every year. How about this? Treat it as your mission for the second half of the year. Thank you, Sister Ning. Lu Qing didn't argue. He immediately turned to leave, intending to communicate with the military as soon as possible. Ning Zitong tapped the table lightly and reminded him, the war-torn zones aren't just a few dozen countries. Your master knows a lot about this. Remember to ask him for advice. Don't be careless. Okay. Lu Qing nodded gratefully. With this reminder he didn't rush to contact the military. Instead he called his master. You want to help find Lin Ke? Asked Jianghu directly. He looked like he knew everything about the martial arts world even though he wasn't in it. Lu Qing answered, yes. He quickly asked, Master, haven't you been roaming the war-torn zones for many years? I'd like to ask about the situation there. Brat, you've come to the right person. I've watched that place develop bit by bit into what it is today. Most of the famous mighty ones who rule over a region used to tremble in fear at the mention of my name. Geezer sure reminisced about the past and rambled on for a while before getting to the point. He said, the war-torn zones are a general term for many countries. The east reaches the ocean, the north reaches the south of China, the west faces the Nile Straits, and the south reaches the polar regions. There are dozens of countries where the political situation is unstable. After today there may not be tomorrow. The war-torn zones were initially caused by regional power struggles and resource grabs. When the strong and mighty ones were tired of fighting, they naturally looked for a peaceful solution. Unfortunately, the United States, Europe, Japan, and other major powers interfered, and the chaos lasted for decades. Chaos is a disaster for the local people. I didn't go to school, but I've heard that it's better to be a dog in peace than a man in troubled times. However, to the major powers, this is a good way to fish in troubled waters. They don't have to worry about the people's lives. As long as they work with the mighty ones, they can immediately obtain the maximum amount of resources. After the mighty ones maintain peace, they will quickly gain the support of the public. Even the worst stability is better than no order. If this continues, won't their ambitions grow? Don't they just want to get rid of their original control? Then it's another cycle. Many powers also want to maintain this situation. Other than resources, they also use the war-torn zones as a place to train their mighty ones, a base for human experiments and an observation room for new weapons. When you're there you can't just look at the surface. Many things are rooted in the United States and elsewhere. Tallinn is a country located in the middle of the war-torn zones. Before the split, it was one of the top countries. Their Tigny city is the center of the regional black market. There's some order, the order of the mighty. Currently, there are many physical invulnerability mighty ones in the war-torn zones, and even more of them are active there. With your current level, I'll only give you a word of advice. Don't mess with the stars, and avoid the gods. What does that mean? The custom there is that after becoming a top-notch mighty one, they will give themselves nicknames like stars or mythical figures. For example, Venus, Moon, Pluto, Zeus, and so on. If you make a name for yourself, you can give yourself one too. What did I give myself back then? Sigh, a real man doesn't talk about his past achievements. Geezer sure only ended the call reluctantly when his phone was almost out of battery. Lu Qing went over the key points, contacted the military and arranged the itinerary. When all this was done, Yanzhika woke up from her biological clock. She asked with a confused expression, "What's the matter?" "Something happened to your brother. His whereabouts are unknown. I'm going to help look for him." Lu Qing tried his best to describe it in a casual tone. Yanzhika's sleepy expression instantly collapsed. Her clear eyes widened as if she had been pricked by a few needles. "Whereabouts are unknown. Do you know what happened?" She couldn't help but ask. "I'm not sure at the moment. We're waiting for further investigation. However, the military's physical invulnerability mighty one who practices the unique skills of the plague sect confirmed that your brother is still alive." Lu Qing sent a patting head emoji. "Don't worry. Grandpa and Grandma are on their way. I'm here too. Your brother will be fine. Yeah. Yenjika replied while nodding vigorously at the dusk of the morning. She took a deep breath and told herself that there was no point in being nervous. She might as well focus on training and throw herself into the heavy workload of schoolwork to calm down. She couldn't let her panic affect Cheng's state of mind and make him take risks to improve. After giving his instructions, Lu Qing took a car to the military airport on the outskirts of Huaqing. He planned to fly directly to Jianghu, which was near Tallinn. This was a relatively orderly city in the Federation and had close ties with China. At 7:15 p.m., the temporarily arranged plane soared into the clouds. It first headed north, then south. In the entire cabin, other than the pilot, Lu Qing, and an officer were the only ones in sight. As the lights dimmed, the environment became quiet and oppressive. After flying deep into the war-torn zones for an unknown period of time, Lu Qing, who was resting with his eyes half closed, suddenly opened his eyes. Change flight route. There's danger ahead. Chapter 652. Change the flight route? The officer at the side was stunned at first, then his pupils constricted. He hurriedly contacted the pilot in the cockpit. He clearly remembered that on the profile of this physical invulnerability mighty one, the words, "able to foresee danger," were written. This wasn't a reason to believe it, but an objective description based on the accumulation of facts. Soon, the plane deviated from its original route and took a big detour. After a few minutes, they received a warning from the main station that there were two groups of forces fighting ahead. They had used fighter jets, bombers, anti-aircraft guns, and surface-to-air missiles. They had to avoid the airspace to avoid being affected. The reason they were called two groups of forces was because not every area in the war-torn zones had a country. Rebel forces and sects imitating China might have controlled a large area, but they hadn't officially established a country. After listening to the main station's description, the officer couldn't help but sneak a glance at Lu Qing, as though he was looking at an unscientific existence. This kind of premonition was still a blank space in modern technology. It was better to see it with your own eyes than to hear about it 1,000 times. Lu Qing had already closed his eyes and refocused to deal with unexpected situations in the war-torn zones. At dawn, the plane landed in Jianghu. Military personnel stationed here welcomed them. Lu Qing asked for a satellite phone and told Yenjika that he was safe. Then he looked around and asked in a deep voice, "Have Old Master Ji and the rest of the Shushan study arrived?" The two seniors, Heaven-Leaning Sword and Seven Star, are already on their way to Tigny City in Tallinn. The leading officer, Wang Feiyun, answered honestly. "I've made a copy of everything they asked and looked through." As he spoke, he took out a stack of documents from his suitcase. "Thank you." Lu Qing nodded and took them. He sat in the back of the camouflage jeep and carefully read the documents in his hands, looking for clues that might be hidden in them. The last time Lin Kei came here was 5 days ago? After reading for a while, he asked thoughtfully. Jianghu was China's base camp, in the center of the war-torn zones. Experts who ventured out to the surrounding areas to train themselves would use it as a base to heal, recuperate, replenish their resources, or obtain information. Lin Kei was no exception. Yes. Wang Feiyun pondered for a moment and said, "He brought back a group of people. This may be related to what he has done in the past few months." Lu Qing closed the file and tapped the paper with his right index finger. "Take me there." There were indeed relevant records in the documents, including the information that Lin Kei had asked for before and after. They almost formed a complete picture of the incident. However, if he went to take a look and ask the person involved, he might be able to gain more information. Anyway, 'cause grandparents had already gone to Tigny's, so he didn't need to be in such a hurry. Okay. Wang Feiyun agreed readily. In Jianghu, China had its own military base and airport, which was where Lu Qing had just arrived at. At this moment, the jeep drove away from the main gate, passing through the quiet and deserted streets in the morning light. Bullet holes could be seen on the walls, indicating that this wasn't a particularly peaceful place. When they arrived at the Chinese relief organization in the south of the city, Wang Feiyun led Lu Qing to a building in the back. "Their mental conditions are very poor. Some even show signs of autism," he said, pointing at a large door. Through the window, Lu Qing saw children who were no longer as lively as they were in their childhood. He saw women with blank gazes, and many men who were so quiet that they seemed to have lost their souls, only responding when stimulated. Even with Lu Qing's current willpower, he couldn't bear to look at those ignorant and empty eyes. He asked Wang Feiyun to find 2 men who were in better condition and asked about what had happened. At this point he basically understood what Lin Ke had been doing in the past few months. He was tracking down an international human trafficking organization rooted in Tignes. Working with other mighty ones, he had interrupted several of their transactions, causing them to suffer heavy losses. As a result, this mafia organization had kept a low profile. Without more clues, Lin Ke had no choice but to go to Tignes again, partly to hone his skills and partly to investigate. Was he retaliated against, or did he follow the clues only to run into a big tiger? Lu Qing muttered to himself, deep in thought. He didn't expect a cold, introverted and taciturn man like brother-in-law to do such a chivalrous thing, risking his life to do it, in a fully enclosed room shimmering with metallic luster. Lin Ke's 4 limbs were powerless as he lay on the bed covered with white cloth. His hands and feet were shackled, from which silver-white bone spurs protruded and pierced into his muscles and bones, staining him dark red with blood. His dark pupils were slightly dilated, but there was an unyielding stubbornness in the depths of his eyes. His entire body was covered with various instruments. Increase the pain stimulus, observe the reaction of bone marrow and brain waves, extract 10 milliliters of blood, mix in reagent T305, and inject it into lab rat number 106. Cut the muscle 3 centimeters deep, apply reagent T246, record the rejection and recovery reaction process, pay attention to the data collection, pause, give lab rat number 19 time to recover and organize the previous data. Cold and emotionless voices entered his ears. Waves of unbearable pain hit his body. Lin Ke felt like he was being cut into pieces, and he wished he could pass out immediately. But he stubbornly held on. In a daze he felt like he was in hell. If not for the lack of strength, he would have bitten his lips. Finally the torture came to an end. He forced himself to examine his body and heal his wounds until he passed out completely. Jianghu, China's military base. Lu Qing used the satellite phone to contact Ji Jianzhang and Dou Ning, who had already arrived in Tignes City. "You're here too," said Ji Jianzhang, gratified. "Then hurry over as soon as possible. Don't make a big fuss, lest some people do something desperate and do something unsalvageable. When you arrive we'll split up and save time." At first Lu Qing didn't understand. After thinking for a while, he understood why Old Master didn't want to make a big fuss. His brother-in-law had left the stage of attention before reaching the inhuman stage. He had a bit of a reputation, but it wasn't resounding enough. In the past 2 years he had been on the verge of being forgotten. Therefore, his details wouldn't be taken seriously by the intelligence agencies of various countries. It was only natural that the organizations in the war-torn zones wouldn't know about his background. If they realized that kidnapping him would attract at least 3 physical invulnerability mighty ones, there would only be 2 choices left. They could either use a hostage and negotiate for a better outcome, or they could kill him to silence him and erase all traces of their brother-in-law's whereabouts and make him disappear from the face of the earth. This possibility wasn't low. Of course, Old Master and Old Madam weren't willing to take the risk. They wanted to confirm the clues before sweeping the area with lightning speed. Phew. Lu Qing heaved a sigh of relief. After sharing the latest situation with his wife, he put away his satellite phone and asked for a map of Tallinn and Tignes. Without further delay he left Jianghu. Measuring the distance by foot was faster and more agile than any off-road vehicle. In the afternoon, when the sun was high in the sky, he arrived at Tignes after crossing the mountains. He went around several entrances that were guarded by fully armed personnel and snuck into the city from an impossible position. His first target was the common street that was mentioned in the information. The common street where Lin Ke had stayed for a while to recuperate from his injuries. Children in their teens patrolled the streets with automatic rifles. Their clothes were tattered and their skin was dark. The innocence on their faces had been replaced by numbness and the occasional flash of hatred. Lu Qing concealed his aura and activated the secret arts of cultivation. Using the refraction and distortion of sunlight from the ice, he disguised himself. He walked on the streets like that. The patrolling Boy Scouts ignored him. Longhu lineage, art of invisibility. Arriving in the middle of Common Street, Lu Qing entered a rundown apartment and went up the stairs to the 3rd floor. According to the information, this was where Lu Qing's brother-in-law used to live. His landlord was called Ji Kong. Just as he was about to knock on the door, Lu Qing sensed something. He turned sideways and used his shoulder to force his way in. Beside the window opposite him was a gorgeous woman with black hair and eyes. She seemed to have lost all her bones. Her arms and body were wrapped tightly around a bronze-skinned man. The latter was Ji Kang. With a loud crack, all the bones in Ji Kang's body broke. He breathed his last. The snake-like demonic woman smiled at Lu Cheng. She suddenly flipped backward and landed on the street. The whole process was smooth and natural, fully demonstrating her confidence in herself. Just as she landed silently, the woman immediately turned around. Her body faded and she turned into a black shadow. She moved to a hidden spot with extreme familiarity and calmness. Just then her vision blurred. She saw the young man from before standing in front of her, as if he had been waiting for a long time. Not good. Just as she was about to change direction, she saw Lu Cheng's palm strike coming at her. It was as fast as lightning, leaving after images. Bam! She raised her hand to block, but her face was hit by the palm along with her forearm. Her vision turned black and she passed out without making a sound. After some time, she opened her eyes in a daze. She saw the young man from before standing in front of her with his hands behind his back. She heard his deep and dignified voice. "Why did you kill Ji Kang?" Chapter 653. Why did you kill Ji Kang? Seeing no reaction from the snake-like woman, Lu Cheng asked again in English. Anyone who could make a name for themselves in the war-torn zones had to master both English and Chinese in addition to their mother tongue. The woman who had strangled Ji Kang with her body tried her best to show her authority. "The organization sent me. Do you want to make an enemy out of us?" "I'm asking why, that's all," Lu Cheng replied calmly. He didn't want to waste any more time. The word army appeared in his mind. Being stared at by those cold eyes, the woman who had undergone harsh training suddenly collapsed. It was as if she could clearly smell the scent of death. It was so terrifying, so terrifying. Her tears and snot flowed uncontrollably. Her body trembled like a sieve. I'll tell you everything. Ji Kang is a bee broker in Tigni's black market. He took a batch of our organization's goods and tried to escape. The organization discovered him and sent me to deal with him. I am telling the truth. Please don't kill me. I don't want to die, I don't want to die. A cold-blooded killer cried like a little girl in despair. She felt like she had lost control of her body and soul. A broker in the black market. Consistent with the description in the information. Lu Cheng nodded slightly. What organization are you from? Star Alliance, spare me, the woman replied while sobbing. An organization that controls 3 zones and has physical invulnerability mighty ones. Lu Cheng sensed her mental state and confirmed that she had broken down. She couldn't be lying to him. It seems like Ji Kang's murder has nothing to do with Lin Kei's disappearance. It's something else. As expected of a war-torn zone. After a few seconds of silence, Lu Cheng took out his phone that had no signal and pulled up a recent photo of Lin Kei provided by the military. Have you seen this person before? The woman trembled as she looked at the photo. She shook her head hurriedly. No, I haven't. Fearing that Lu Cheng wouldn't believe her, she quickly added, You can go to the Jinwhale bar on Tutton Street and ask around. They have a general behind them. It's one of the main places for information exchange in Tigni's, involving many people. If the person in the photo has been to Tigni's, someone there should have seen him. There was a brief mention of it in the information, but it wasn't as detailed as the Rose Mill that was involved in human trafficking. The Jinwhale bar should be used by the lower class. Every snake has its way and every mouse has its hole. Lu Cheng made up his mind. He walked to the entrance, opened the door, and disappeared into the dark passageway, ignoring the female killer who was lying on the ground. The female assassin watched him leave in a daze. After a long time, she came back to her senses and cried again, full of the joy and venting of surviving a disaster. She used both her hands and feet to try to stand up, but her body was trembling so much that she couldn't exert any strength. With a bang, she fell back down again. Her face was covered in dirt and her body was covered in dirt. At this moment, clear footsteps came from the corridor. Devil? That devil is back? The female assassin's pupils shrunk, and her hair stood on end. She felt as though electricity had passed through her tailbone. She forgot about the soreness and weakness she felt earlier. She jumped up, ran out of the window and jumped out. Bam! She couldn't stand properly and fell like a gourd. She didn't know how many bones she broke, but she forced herself to crawl into the small alley. Her heart echoed with one thought after another. I won't go on missions anymore. This world is so scary. I want to book a counseling appointment. In the corridor, a boy with a rifle found an abandoned room and peed in it comfortably. Compared to Carmen, Tutton Street was obviously much more prosperous. Although there were many people who were tough, they weren't as austere as the group of Boy Scouts. At the entrance of the Gin Whale bar stood a total of 6 burly men. They didn't hide the bulge at their waists, and one of them was even holding an AK rifle upside down. Without any hesitation, Lu Qing walked over and said with an imposing manner, "I want to see your boss." The 6 burly men suddenly felt a heavy burden on their shoulders. They couldn't straighten their backs. They felt that the young man in front of them was both tall and deep. His words were irresistible and they only wanted to obey. "Yes, as you wish," the blonde leader answered with trembling legs. He led Lu Qing inside. They passed through the first floor, which was packed with people, loud music, and dimly lit. They arrived at the stairs leading down. It was only then that he remembered to report. Underground, where the underground boxing competition was taking place, there was a spacious and luxurious office. Behind a steel desk sat a man in a red general's uniform. He was dignified, domineering, and stern. He wore a large brimmed hat that covered his eyes. Whenever he swept his gaze across anyone in the room, they would tremble in fear and want to kneel down and beg for mercy. And every one of these people was famous in the Gin Whale bar, Tutton Street, and even Tigny City. "Mr. General, a guest wants to see you." A trembling voice sounded from the walkie-talkie. The man known as the general clasped his hands on the table. After a moment of silence, he said calmly, "Let him come over. Let's see who's looking for me by name." Lu Cheng's hands hung naturally, his index finger using the seam of his pants as a pendulum. He followed the blonde man down the stairs and found another world underground. Bypassing the ring filled with intense fights and blood, he arrived at the entrance of the office. He saw the bar owner in a red general's uniform and a large brimmed hat surrounded by more than 10 experts. "It's you?" Lu Qing was stunned at first but soon smiled. This was someone he knew, the son of a Milua warlord who had defeated him in the Four Nations competition, Vagar the General. He had honed his skills in the war-torn zones for many years. He had fought with the Taoist once and indirectly helped him reach physical invulnerability. "It's you?" Vagar was stunned as well. His pupils constricted, like the tip of a needle, flashing silvery white. Unlike many experts in the war-torn zones who lacked external sources of information, he had long known from Miluo's intelligence channels that the old opponent before him was no longer what he used to be. He was a true general-level expert. Vagar let go of his hands that were clasped on the desk and retracted them in front of him. He seemed to be on high alert. He looked around at the experts before speaking in a deep voice. "Why are you here?" "To buy information." Lu Qing went straight to the point. Vagar narrowed his eyes and sized up Lu Qing. He couldn't see through the person he had defeated in the past. Not only couldn't he see through him, but he also felt an inexplicable fear, like an animal facing its natural enemy. "What information?" Vagar's tone softened instinctively. "I want to know if anyone has seen this person in the past few days." Lu Qing took out his phone and showed him the information on Lin Quebec. "Send me his photo. I'll get someone to ask." Seeing that it was a small matter, Vagar's body relaxed. Using the bar's LAN, Lu Qing sent the photo over. Vagar ordered his subordinates to deal with it immediately. Lu Qing didn't leave. Instead, he dragged a chair and sat beside the office door. He looked like he wasn't going to rest until he got the results. The veins on Vagar's forehead bulged and jumped, but he didn't explode in the end. After a long silence, he suddenly spoke. "If I have the information you want, I hope to receive a special reward." "What?" Since Lu Qing proposed to buy and not rob, there was naturally room for negotiation. Vagar clenched his fists and straightened his broad back. "Fight with me. I want to know how big the gap is between us." He wanted to stimulate himself and find the dawn of becoming a true general-level mighty one. "No problem." Lu Qing nodded after a few seconds of silence. The two of them didn't say anything else. The office returned to silence. However, the oppressive feeling made everyone uncomfortable. They didn't even dare to breathe loudly except for Lu Qing. After an unknown period of time, news finally came back. More than 5 guards of Gin Whale Bar had seen Lin K 3 days ago. He was right here. He fought in an underground fight and left with injuries. "He hasn't appeared since," said Vagar's subordinate, the bar owner on the surface. "Injured?" Lu Qing asked in surprise. Although he had only taken a quick glance, he could see that both sides of the arena fight were limited to low-ranked dance stage fighters. The surrounding audience didn't show any disdain either. Brother-in-law was an inhuman mighty one who had awakened his supernatural ability in advance. How could he be injured in such a situation? With his strength, no one in the crowd could have done it unless Vagar went up personally or bullied him with numbers. Vagar answered on behalf of his subordinate. Coincidentally, there was a powerful guy who fought in the arena a few days ago. A very mysterious and special guy. I believe that the strength he displayed was only a part of his true strength. Who was it? Asked Lu Qing calmly. Perhaps it was because of such an opponent that brother-in-law was excited and took the initiative to challenge him. Vagar gestured for his subordinate to bring over his laptop and replayed the highlights of the previous few matches. As Lu Qing watched, he gradually frowned. Lin Kei's opponent was really strange. He had blonde hair and blue eyes. He didn't have any expression from beginning to end. He was even more Lin Kei than Lin Quebec. Every punch and kick seemed to have been measured and controlled very well. He seemed to have reached the realm of, God is watching you. However, he didn't show this in other aspects. He was strong and agile. However, he gave off a lifeless and inflexible feeling. At times, he even seemed to lack the ability to feel pain. This is a little strange. Could brother-in-law's disappearance be related to him? Lu Qing suddenly had a thought. Perhaps brother-in-law's disappearance wasn't because of the revenge of the human trafficking group, but because of some other unexpected incident. Otherwise, the experts of Shushan study wouldn't be completely clueless. Who is he? Where is he? Asked Lu Qing straightforwardly. Vagar tilted his head and looked at his subordinate. On the surface, the bar owner answered, I don't know who he is or what forces are behind him. However, I know where he lives. He lives in 172 San Jose Street, an apartment on the left side of the 5th floor. Thank you. Lu Qing stood up and returned the chair to its original position. You can fulfill your payment now. Vagar stood up as well. His fists were glowing silver as if he was wearing heavy gloves. Lu Qing looked up at him. He slowly raised his arm and clenched his fingers one by one. Bam! He threw a punch. The surface of his fist condensed and absorbed the surrounding light. His body grew brighter and brighter while the office grew darker. As the darkness deepened, the temperature dropped. Just as Vagar was about to dodge, a chilly wind entered his body. He couldn't help but shiver. The white before his eyes grew brighter and brighter, filling up the entire heaven and earth. Boom! His arms were forcibly opened, and streaks of silver-white electric snakes splashed everywhere. Bam bam bam. Vagar was sent flying. He crashed through 3 walls and landed heavily in the dust. Swoosh swoosh swoosh. His subordinates either drew their guns or clenched their fists. They were about to surround Lu Qing. Let him go, shouted Vagar in a hoarse voice. Lu Qing didn't even look at his subordinates. He had already turned around and left with his hands in his pockets. He had learned that punch from the god-slaying saber Lu Yongyuan. Using the uniqueness of his Starry Universe style, he had used it more harmoniously and naturally than his opponent. It had a different feel, but it lacked the dominance that came from the heart. Vagar struggled to get up and watched as his opponent drifted away. After a long while he sighed. Is this the difference between me and him? Just one punch. Chapter 654. After leaving Jinwale Bar, Lu Qing didn't head straight to San Jose Street. He had been on the move for Lin Kei's matter and hadn't eaten or drunk anything. His mouth was dry and his stomach was growling. Although he hadn't lost his ability to fight, he wasn't in peak condition either. His next target was a little strange. He couldn't be sure what kind of danger was lurking. He had to be fully prepared. Looking at the darkening sky, he condensed a piece of ice crystal and stuffed it into his mouth. He melted it with his tongue. It was cold, refreshing, and nourishing at the same time. According to the map given by the military, there should be a small food market nearby. It's open from 6 to 8. Lu Qing muttered to himself. He scanned his surroundings slowly but didn't find any restaurants. There were less than 5 shops on the entire street that were still open. He didn't turn back to look for Vagar. Following his memory and occasionally looking at the map, he circled around to a ruin that seemed to have been bombed by a plane. The faint light of dusk shone in, blurring the shadows of the people hiding in the shadows. The stall owners came one after another from all directions and took up their assigned positions. They were fully armed and loaded with guns, for fear of encountering customers who would take risks out of desperation. Lu Qing looked as far as he could. He saw hardtack, small bags of flour and cans with Chinese labels on them. Can you give me 2 cans of beef? A 17 or 18-year-old girl with messy hair walked past Lu Qing and stopped in front of a stall owner with a full beard. She stared at the tin box like a hungry wolf that had finally found its prey and couldn't bear to look away. With Lu Qing's hearing, it wasn't hard to hear the sound of her swallowing. The stall owner glanced at her and chuckled in broken English. As long as you have Chinese or American notes, gold and guns. I don't. The girl's voice trailed off. Then, as if she had made up her mind, she said, I can sleep with you. Just 2 cans of beef. The stall owner sized her up and finally said, okay, but you have to wait until the end. Can you give me one first? Asked the girl anxiously. Come over here. The stall owner pointed to the seat beside him. You have to stay with me for 2 days. Okay. The young girl walked over and took an open can with her eyes shining. She didn't care about the knife and fork. Kneeling down, she reached out and grabbed a piece of oily beef, stuffed it into her mouth and wolfed it down. The stall owner patted her chest and buttocks as if he was measuring the goods and nodded in satisfaction. Seeing this scene, Lu Qing couldn't help but think of his cousins Qi Yunfei, Qin Xiaoxiao and Ma Shi. They were about the same age as the girl in front of him. They were busy with their studies. For a moment, Lu Cheng's emotions fluctuated as if there was something stuck in his throat. And? The stall owner was stunned for a few seconds. Then he quietly brought out a thick, big and black calculator and pressed it for a long time before he got the answer. He took out his wallet and emptied it with cash. He also took some of the gold from the military to pay the bill. Taking the food wrapped in the old newspaper, he tore open a can of beef that wasn't self-heating. Just as he was about to enjoy it, the stall owner kindly reminded him, this can taste better if it's frozen. The jelly formed by the gravy, gulp. The Jinwhale bar on Tutton Street has a refrigerator and its own generator. You can borrow it if you pay a little. As he spoke, the stall owner couldn't help but lick his lips. Lu Qing nodded slowly. Holding the old newspaper with the rest of the food in one hand, he quickly froze the can with the other hand. With a shake of his wrist, a piece of beef and the jelly formed by the gravy flew into the air and into his mouth. Not bad. Lu Qing turned around and left while chewing. The stall owner was dumbfounded. Starting from the cold can. He wasn't a commoner who didn't know how to get food. He knew what this meant. This was the strongest of the strongest. Who would dare to take money from such people in the market? They wouldn't have the self-awareness to pay. This was the rule of Tignis, the universal rule. After a long time he looked at Lu Cheng's back and then at his stall. He felt lucky. Lu Qing found a random wall at the edge of the ruins and sat down. Without wasting any time he started eating. When there were only 2 cans left, 5 packs of compressed biscuits and 3 bottles of drinking water left, he wrapped them up again and walked out of the market. Along the way he saw many children staring at the passers-by with pleading eyes, hoping to get some food. Lu Qing sighed to himself and gave the rest of the food to different children. He didn't pay attention to their shocked expressions, nor did he care about the resulting disputes. This was the war-torn zone. 172 San Jose Street. The entrance was riddled with old bullet holes, and the nearby glass windows were mostly damaged. With both hands in his pockets, Lu Qing walked up the mottled stairs step by step. His posture was calm and his expression was relaxed, as if he was an invited guest. Since he had formed the ice heart, his mind could sense the situation within a dozen meters around him. 4 physical invulnerability experts, after connecting heaven and earth, their mind would definitely mutate and cover a wider area. Similar abilities were a common trait. However, for those who had cultivated the enemy heart-freezing move, the effects would be clearer and the range would be wider. When he passed by the 5th floor, Lu Qing didn't stop and continued to climb. Just as he brushed past the 5th floor, his heart lake reflected the scenes of the walls and the rooms. A tattered sofa, a table with all kinds of empty cans, some of which had not been thrown away for a long time and were even growing hair. No one here. Lu Qing nodded thoughtfully. He made a turn on the 6th floor and returned to the ground floor. He stood in the shadows and watched the entrance. It was already late at night. The street was dark without street lights. Only the apartments on both sides were illuminated by candlelight. In China, such a street would have at least 2 barbecue stores, 1 braised food, 1 fried rice and a 24-hour supermarket. The roadside would be filled with tables, aromas and alcohol bottles. Such a scene can't be found now. After all, for the sake of environmental protection, for the sake of green and peace in this world, there's at most a 24-hour supermarket. Lu Qing leaned against the wall with his hands in his pockets. He thought about the deserted and dilapidated surroundings. It was the same sky but a different life. After an unknown period of time, his eyes suddenly focused on the mysterious expert in the video. He was wearing a black trench coat. His face was expressionless, and his green eyes were like those of a wild beast. After watching him enter 172, Lu Qing wasn't in a hurry to follow. He waited for a while before stretching his muscles and decided to follow. At this moment, the mysterious expert with blonde hair and blue eyes came down again and walked to the other end of the street. Lu Qing's heart of ice was clear. He spread his spirit and followed him from dozens of meters away with his hands in his pockets. He also used the secret method of cultivation. He turned left, walked straight, and turned right. The mysterious expert with blonde hair and blue eyes didn't seem to notice anything unusual. 10 minutes later, he came to a ruin in the suburbs. He could vaguely make out the shape of a factory. The buildings had collapsed and the steel was scattered. Suddenly, the mysterious expert with blonde hair and blue eyes turned around like a whirlwind. His cold eyes were fixed on Lu Qing. He can even detect this? Sure enough, it's a little weird. Lu Qing thought calmly. Whoosh, whoosh. Two people jumped down from the second floor of the factory ruins. One was short, dark-skinned, with black hair and black eyes. The other had light yellow eyebrows and a single light blue eye. They either melted into the night or were muscular. They looked different, but they had the same temperament as the mysterious expert with blonde hair and blue eyes. Rigid, inflexible, not agile enough, strange and frightening. Seeing his companion blocking Lu Qing's way, the expert with blonde hair and blue eyes said in a flat tone, "Detestable and troublesome stalker." After that, he looked at his two companions and continued in a monotonous voice. The Tigny Security Police's reaction time is 30 minutes, the City Defense Forces is 15 minutes, and the experts nearby are 5 minutes. Number 4, Number 6, end the battle in 5 minutes. Number 4, Number 6? Lu Qing frowned slightly. He took out his right hand from his trouser pocket, the remaining coin in between his fingers. Clang. He flicked the coin into the air. Chapter 655. Number 4, Number 6, end the battle in 5 minutes. As the mysterious expert's voice fell, his companion underwent a miraculous change. The short, dark-skinned man who seemed to have blended into the night began to swell up like a balloon. Silver electric snakes flowed out of every muscle of his body, condensing into a terrifying lightning spear in his hand, causing the surrounding weeds to tremble. He took a step forward and blocked Lu Qing's path of retreat. He stretched his back and opened his arms, ready to throw the bright silver lightning spear. Pop, pop, pop. The one-eyed man's muscles and bones opened up. His right arm was as thick as a cannon barrel, making his body look abnormally deformed. He was half a beat slower as he approached Lu Qing in a layered manner. He imitated the launch of a missile and threw out a punch. The mysterious expert with blonde hair and blue eyes stood opposite Lu Qing. He raised his arms, thumbs against thumbs, index finger against index finger, forming a cannon muzzle. Bzzz. Blazing white light gathered within and circled rapidly. A dangerous aura spread out. This was an ability he had never displayed in the arena at Jinwale Bar. It was an even more powerful ability. At this moment, a crisp sound rang out as a coin tumbled into the air. The three people surrounding Lu Qing subconsciously raised their eyes to look at it, and the movements of their hands slowed slightly. Slowly, Lu Qing moved his joints and took a step back. As he took a step forward with his left leg, he lowered his body and arched his back. Bzzz. The exaggerated bright silver lightning spear landed where he was originally standing, a few feet deep into the ground. Rings of electric arc spread out in all directions. Boom. The blazing white light was like a laser beam, piercing through the night and Lu Qing's afterimage. It hit a distance away, creating a powerful explosion. Bam. The one-eyed man's fist landed on the void above Lu Qing, dispersing the airflow and creating a strong gale. The one-eyed man's eyes narrowed. He moved his shoulders, intending to change from a punch to a chop to beat his enemy. However, the moment Lu Qing lowered his body, the surrounding temperature dropped instantly, turning darker than darkness. Stars leaped out one after another, warming up the area. Bam. He straightened his back, swung his left arm diagonally, and struck the one-eyed man's fist. The starry sky reflected on the ground instantly enveloped his opponent. Fundamental unique skill, Cosmic Phantom. Layers of cold turned into ice, sealing the one-eyed man inside, causing his expression to freeze. Whoosh, whoosh. Round after round of stars flew over, one after another, densely packed. Rumble, rumble, rumble. Layers of flames overlapped, forming a huge mushroom and a cloud that spread out in all directions. Taking advantage of the chaos, Lu Qing turned his waist and moved to the side of the short, dark-skinned man. Amidst the smoke and explosions, he clenched his right hand into a fist, covered in light purple, and punched out heavily. The short, dark-skinned man didn't panic at all, as if he had completely lost his emotions. He raised his left arm, bent his elbow, and met Lu Cheng's fist with a fluttering silver snake. The blonde guy didn't look at the one-eyed man's end anymore. Facing the enemy's back, he slid forward and threw a punch. The blazing white light formed a pincer attack. At this moment, the coin that had been bounced into the air fell into the range of Lu Cheng's mind. With a gentle tug, the Emperor Yan's fire force contained within suddenly exploded. Rumble. With a flash of light, the blonde guy's eyes were filled with white. He felt a few pieces of debris shooting towards him. Instinctively, he lowered his head and extended his left hand to protect his vitals. The short, dark-skinned man's body and mind trembled, as if he was experiencing an uncontrollable knee-jerk reaction. Rumble. Lu Cheng's fist, which was covered with a faint purple flame, hit him on the elbow. The electric snake disintegrated, the skin was instantly charred, and the enemy was trembling all over. Under the force of the rebound and the pressure of the paralysis, he turned his waist and back. As if he was skating on ice, he nimbly turned to the back of the short dark-skinned man, causing the blonde guy to hit empty air. Bam! Lu Qing stepped forward and pressed his knee, cutting off the short, dark-skinned man's ability to kick backward. At the same time, he extended his right hand and firmly pressed on his opponent's elbow joint. Bam! Lu Qing swung his left arm and punched out. The light purple was restrained and looked like only a thin layer. The short, dark-skinned man couldn't block in the shock. He wanted to jump forward to avoid this fatal blow, but how could his speed be faster than a punch? Rumble. Lu Cheng's left fist landed squarely on the enemy's back. The enemy's flesh and blood immediately disintegrated. Pieces of flesh and blood flew in all directions, burning with flames. Plop. The short, dark-skinned man fell to the ground, leaving only his waist and lower body. Bam, bam, bam. In the spreading mushroom cloud, more than a dozen pieces of charred flesh and melted and twisted metal proved the existence of the expert, the one-eyed man. The blonde guy stopped in his tracks, turned around, and fled without hesitation. He didn't look like he was about to collapse. It was as if he had judged the situation in an instant and made the right choice. At this moment, a deep, solemn voice suddenly rang in his ears. Formation. The surrounding airflow transformed into layers of shackles, firmly imprisoning the blonde guy in place. His eyes were blazing white as if there were turbines pressurizing in his body, trying to break the shackles by force. Lu Qing caught up with him in one step. He shook his arms and stretched out his hands. They passed through the cage and clasped the shoulders of the blonde guy. He suddenly turned his waist and back, lifting and shaking his palms. Kacha, kacha. The sound of joints falling off and bones cracking could be heard from the blonde guy's body. The condensed blazing white dissipated helplessly, turning into light and shadow. With one strike, this mysterious expert turned into a pile of mud without the support of bones. At this moment, the coin fragments fell to the ground in different directions. Lu Qing didn't waste any time. While watching the blonde guy fall to the ground, he concentrated on the ancient words in his mind, outlining the blood-evil qi. Army, he said coldly and sternly, imprinting a sharp and terrifying feeling on the unguarded mind of the blonde guy. Lu Qing thought the guy would break down instantly, lose control of his bodily fluids, and answer whatever he asked. Unexpectedly, the guy didn't react at all, as though he wasn't afraid at all. Strange indeed. Lu Qing muttered to himself. He switched to the secret arts of the fire sect and the secret arts of the cultivators, but it was still useless. Whether it was mental intimidation or forced hypnosis, it was like facing a corpse. Seeing this, he thought of something. He pressed between his eyebrows and directly used his strong mind to attack the guy. Over and over again, after a total of 9 times, Lu Qing suddenly heard an illusory shattering sound. The blonde guy finally showed a pained expression. He rolled with difficulty and roared in a low voice, "Let me go, let me go. Who am I, who am I?" Lu Qing watched quietly, squatted down, took out Lin Kei's photo and hung it in front of the guy. His voice went straight into the guy's ear. "Where did you take him?" The blonde guy's condition clearly wasn't suitable for step-by-step questioning. He simply assumed that the guy had something to do with his brother-in-law's disappearance. He boldly hypothesized and carefully verified it. The blonde guy, who was still groaning in pain, followed the question and looked at the photo. He was stunned for a moment. Number 16, it was number 16. He was originally a terror-level expert. I am number 5, no, I am not. His voice trailed off and his eyes were unfocused, hiding the sluggishness as though his head had been hit hard. Where did you send him? Lu Qing was delighted but immediately tensed up. He asked in a low voice. My brother-in-law's disappearance really has something to do with these mysterious guys using numbers as code names. The blonde-haired, blue-eyed man gasped for breath. Base, Tigny's Northport base? Before he could finish, something seemed to have been triggered. Blazing white flowed in his body and exploded silently. Lu Qing couldn't stop it in time. After the blazing white disappeared, the blonde guy curled up even more painfully. Every muscle seemed to have gained its own spirituality, dancing on their own. Ah! Amidst his screams, his waist shriveled and the muscles on his back bulged. 2 new arms covered in scales grew out. Genetic breakdown? Lu Qing muttered to himself. He stopped trying to save the guy and gave him a quick death. After the blonde guy died, his muscles, tendons, and bones were still changing. But in less than a minute, everything turned into a bloody pulp. In an apartment in Tigny's, a brown-haired man with chiseled features sat on the sofa. He stared blankly at the blank TV screen, deep in thought. He wore a green and white baseball uniform with a large number written on the back. 16. Suddenly his eyelids twitched. There seemed to be a flash of light in his eyes, as though he was equipped with a retina-based communication device. The signal sources of number 4 and number 6 have disappeared. The blocking program of number 5 has been activated. The old man in the green and white baseball uniform stood up abruptly and looked towards the outskirts of the city. The signal source of number 5 has disappeared as well. Narrowing his eyes, the man walked to the window, pressed his palm and leaped out. He clearly had terrifying strength. He believed that he didn't have to fear anyone in Tigny's. Even if he couldn't beat them, he could still escape. Lu Qing looked at the bloody pulp on the ground. After a few seconds of silence, he took out the satellite phone from his backpack and called Grandpa G. Hello, Senior G. I found a clue to Lin Kei's disappearance. Can you come over? Sure. Ji Jianzhang didn't ask for details. He trusted Lu Qing fully. P.S. This picture was updated at 12:30 p.m., but Qidian's back-end drew it. Looking for recommendation tickets on Monday. Chapter 656. Putting away the satellite phone, Lu Qing examined the 3 corpses again, trying to find the source of their strangeness. Among them, the one-eyed man had been hit head-on by Universe Phantom. All that was left of him was charred black, and his original appearance couldn't be discerned. The molten and twisted metal might have come from his clothes, his pockets, or something else. As for the blonde man, he was reduced to a pile of flesh and blood, making him easier to investigate than the other man who only had half his body left. Pressing his thumb, Lu Qing used the technique of Ice Spirit Holy Light to form a crystalline longsword. He stabbed it into the flesh and blood in front of him. He poked and stirred, cooperating with the senses of God above my head. His mind was calm and clear. Suddenly he discovered tiny silver-white particles hidden in the corpses. They shone with a faint metallic glow and covered every inch of the flesh. Nanomachines. Lu Qing thought of what he had seen at the military base. He muttered to himself, half surprised and half guessing. From there he considered more possibilities. Since the other party had this level of technology, the 3 enemies with numbers as code names might have other devices on them. Perhaps their deaths would be detected in another way. As these thoughts flashed through his mind, Lu Qing surveyed his surroundings and retreated to the factory ruins 20 to 30 meters away. He hid behind a half-collapsed wall with reinforced steel protruding from it. He withdrew his qi and blood, activated his secret technique, and leaned against the wall like an invisible person. Using the reflections of the shattered glass and the vision of God above my head, he monitored the battlefield. He suspected that the people from the mysterious organization already knew about the incident here and would most likely come to investigate. Therefore, he didn't want his presence to cause the other party to retreat and cut off the clues. In the information provided by the military, there was no mention of North Harbor Base. If Kuku's grandparents arrived first, he would give them a heads up and ask them to hide as well. A few minutes later, Lu Qing's heart skipped a beat. He felt the atmosphere around him become heavier. He cautiously retracted his spirit and no longer looked down from above. Instead, he observed the entrance of the factory ruins through the broken glass. After counting silently for a few seconds, he saw a blurry figure from the corner of his eyes. It was a figure wearing a green and white baseball uniform. The man with the number 16 emblazoned on his back walked closer step by step in his high-top black combat boots. He stood in front of the few remaining pieces of the one-eyed man's body. Laser beams gathered in his eyes on his well-defined, deeply wrinkled but expressionless face. Lu Qing didn't wait any longer in case there were more accidents. He concealed his breath and distorted the light around him. He took a step forward cautiously, intending to launch an attack. However, just as he moved, the brown-haired man immediately turned sideways and faced the half-collapsed building. What a strong sensing ability. It's like he's equipped with a radar. Lu Qing narrowed his eyes, straightened his back, and walked out with an imposing manner. Since he couldn't launch a surprise attack, then he would have to attack head-on. The person with the number 16 on his back suddenly saw a young man in navy blue clothes appear from the darkness. His hands hung down naturally and his eyes were dark and deep. His footsteps were neither too big nor too small, neither too light nor too heavy, as though he was stepping on his own heart. One step, two steps. Number 16 felt his surroundings become more distant and blurry. He felt as though he had been forcefully pulled out of this world and was floating alone and helplessly in the boundless starry sky. His surroundings were as dark as a curtain, dotted with diamond-like stars. It was dreamy and grand, making all living things seem exceptionally small. His opponent stood in the middle, his navy blue eyes deep and profound, as though he was a god who controlled the universe and looked down on all living things. Around him, a scarlet-red halo first appeared, flying in an ellipse with the longest trajectory. Immediately after, a faint purple halo shone above his head, a golden halo hung behind his head, and a blazing white and light blue halo formed a circle, sometimes on the left and sometimes on the right. It wasn't until the sense of danger hit him that number 16 came to his senses. He realized that he was at a disadvantage in the mental battle and the exchange of auras. As a result, he missed the best opportunity to attack when his opponent wasn't ready. He didn't have emotions, but that didn't mean he didn't rely on his mental strength or other methods. His eyes unwavering, number 16 raised his hands coldly and opened every pore on his palms. Pure and dazzling light gushed out. The light gathered in an instant and blasted out with a boom. Like two long dragons crossing the darkness, they opened their mouths and swallowed the stars. At the same time, number 16 swung his waist and back, dodging to Lu Cheng's side with a bang. He lifted his thigh, hurriedly swung his knee and shook his ankle. He forcefully kicked out a crescent-shaped blade light, silently slashing at his opponent. He had completely displayed the strength of a Terra-grade expert. In his eyes, Lu Qing seemed to have anticipated this. With a simple sidestep, he dodged the laser cannons, causing them to fall into the ruins of the factory behind him. They pierced through layers of half-collapsed walls, causing the tottering buildings to collapse with a boom. With this as a backdrop, his opponent shook his right arm and turned it into an iron whip, ruthlessly lashing out at him. The blazing white, faint purple and other fireballs danced and gathered, smashing down as well. He didn't care about the crescent. A dark green light flashed in number 16's eyes. He bent his waist and bounced to the side. As though there were springs under his feet, he flew higher and higher. Seeing this, Lu Qing abruptly stomped his feet into the ground. This caused his knees to straighten and his back to rotate rapidly. Like a spear, he pressed his tail and turned his whipping right arm into an upward swing, causing the gathered 5 flames to rise gradually. Attracted by the heavy Virokana, the crescent moon distorted and collapsed. When it landed on Lu Cheng's body, it only managed to cut through the layer of crystalline ice. The 5 flames shot out rapidly and chased after number 16 into the air. Rumble. A huge blazing white fireball bloomed in the air, spraying flowing magma and brilliant fireworks in all directions. The intense light engulfed number 16 in an instant, and the terrifying sound shattered the remaining glass on San Jose Street. Strong winds swept and danced, sending sparks flying. Number 16's figure appeared high up in the air. His clothes were in tatters, his pants turned to ash and his body was charred and dented. If he hadn't used the beam shield at the last moment and teleported to avoid the core of the explosion, he would have been severely injured at the very least. At this very moment, number 16 was hovering in the air, showing no signs of descending. One of his abilities was flight. The flight of a physical invulnerability expert. Lu Qing had locked onto him and suppressed him mentally, so he couldn't immediately rise into the air. He was afraid that the slightest movement would cause him to be struck by lightning. He could only take the initiative to attack and create an opportunity. This way he would be in a position where he had no chance of losing and could also exhaust his opponent's terrifying killer move. He didn't expect his opponent to control the 9 rotations of 5 flames so well that he could change his move halfway. Number 16 pressed his right hand against his left palm and extended it forward. A dark green light flashed in his eyes as he locked onto Lu Cheng's figure. Mortar. Modified. Boom. A blazing white beam shot out from his left palm and blasted towards Lu Cheng on the ground. Boom. 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 One after another, the blazing white beams shot out, covering the surrounding area as though they were plowing the ground. Lu Cheng used the mesmerizing snow steps and the all-seeing god to change directions and avoid the cannon fire. At the same time, he stirred up a strong wind to blow the blazing white beams off their tracks. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Rumble rumble rumble. While Lu Cheng was dodging, he wasn't idling either. Occasionally he would flick his fingers and shoot out beams of cold light into the air. Other times he would quickly condense crimson fireballs to bombard his opponent. Number 16 was like a fighter jet, either soaring, circling, or coming to a sudden stop to avoid his opponent's counterattack. The two were in a deadlock for a while. Suddenly, Number 16 condensed a laser beam and shot it from the device in his eyes towards Lu Cheng at lightning speed. However, Lu Cheng already had a premonition of danger. Before the laser beam was released, he shifted his position and allowed the 2 beams of green light to shoot into the ground, leaving deep holes. Number 16 knew that the commotion just now would attract attention. Seeing that he couldn't take down his opponent in a hurry, he decided to retreat and flew out of the ruins of the factory. Without the suppression of the cannon fire, Lu Cheng glanced at the half-broken pillar in the ruins. He wanted to use the momentum to soar into the air and use the formation formula to keep his opponent here. At that moment, Number 16 saw a middle-aged woman with a long sword in her hand. Her hair was tied up in a bun and she looked graceful as she approached him. Immediately after, a meteor streaked across the sky, illuminating the darkness. With a long tail of light, it smashed into his body and filled his vision. A strong suction force came from it and slowed down Number 16's sudden stop and change of direction. Bam! Lu Cheng ran at high speed and jumped up. Kicking off the top of the half-broken pillar, he leaped into the air and formed a hand seal. Formation. P.S. Looking for recommendation tickets and monthly tickets on Monday. Chapter 657. Number 16 was already having trouble changing directions due to the strong attractive force. Now that the formation was on him, he froze in midair and could no longer avoid the brilliant meteor with a tail of light. All he could do was drive every cell in his body to produce a repulsive force that converged into an indistinct light shield. With a whoosh, the meteor grew larger and larger. Its surface burned with flames due to the high-speed friction with the atmosphere, bursting into an even more dazzling light. Only when it was within reach and was about to touch Number 16's body did Number 16's pupils reflect the man and the sword. Boom! The meteor swallowed the enemy in its brilliance. The flames rolled back and bloomed layer by layer like a blooming red lotus, beautiful but dangerous. The 6th move of the fighting sect, Flame Meteor. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. Rays of light scattered. Number 16 fell from the sky in a sorry state. His body was covered with sword marks and many bloody holes. Before he could rise again, a sword light rushed over and slashed wildly. 7 luminary star, Do Ning. Puff puff puff. The sound of a blunt knife cutting through flesh rang out continuously. The densely packed sounds made one's teeth ache. Number 16, who had not yet adjusted himself, was unable to block all of the attacks with his fists, kicks, and laser cannons. He was forcibly knocked back and almost split into several pieces. Do Ning's attacks had just eased when Number 16 felt the ground shake. Lu Cheng's powerful figure appeared in his eyes. His fists were full of fire and each move was heavy and terrifying. Bam! 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 Lu Cheng whipped his arm, hit him with short bursts, stabbed him with the great spear, and bombarded him with cannon punches. He completely suppressed Number 16 and lit his opponent like a torch. Bam! Bam! After a series of moves, he bent his body and slid half a step forward to avoid Number 16's block. Then he straightened his back and punched upwards as if he was going to soar into the sky. Bam! He punched Number 16's chest and abdomen, shattering his remaining light shield and taking him to the sky. Lu Cheng took advantage of Number 16's dizziness to reach out his left hand and grab him. Then he twisted his legs and wrapped his right arm to imprison all of Number 16's joints and freeze his body. Straightening his back and exploding his flame force, Lu Qing changed his direction and pressed his opponent down like a human-shaped meteorite. Rumble. The ground cracked and a crater was formed. Number 16 was lying in the middle, foaming at the mouth. His body twitched and twitched, but there was not a single piece of intact skin to be found. He also lacked the bones to support him to stand up. The lean Ji Jianzhang approached. He watched as Lu Qing stood up and pointed his long sword at number 16's forehead. As long as he exerted his strength, the enemy would definitely be smashed into pieces and die without a complete corpse. It's him? Taking a closer look, Ji Jianzhang said in surprise. Senior, do you know him? Lu Qing asked in surprise. Ji Jianzhang frowned slightly and said in a deep voice. He's an American and has been roaming this area since 30 or 40 years ago. He's famous for his flying ability. It's said that only he can hit people and no one can hit him. But if you walk by the river often, how can you not wet your shoes? How many bombers had been shot down? I heard that he was seriously injured a few years ago and died. I didn't expect him to still be alive. He doesn't seem to recognize me. His eyes don't seem right. Did he lose his memory? His state of being alive is a little strange. Dou Ning, with her hair in a high bun and graceful bun, sensed that something was wrong. Lu Qing quickly recounted the problems he discovered and the results of the interrogation. Starting from number 16's nationality, he connected the dots and had a rough idea. Ji Jianzhang and Dou Ning looked at each other and said in unison, Artificial Weapons Project? Ji Jianzhang frowned and said, That's not right. I've never heard of them having a base in Tignes. It's a little different from the Artificial Weapons Project I know. Dou Ning nodded in agreement. Listening to the conversation between Cuckoo's grandpa and grandma and feeling their tacit understanding, Lu Qing suddenly felt that he was unnecessary here. He pondered for a few seconds and said, Maybe it's a branch research, a new secret base. Yeah, no matter what, he's in their hands. Dou Ning's tone turned stern as she looked at Ji Jianzhang. Let's find out the exact location of that North Harbor base. Number 16 was at the Terra grade. His willpower was firm, his mind was strong, and he seemed to have been brainwashed. Lu Qing and the Ji family elders took turns to use their secret arts to slap him. It took them a good few minutes to break him down. Once he broke down, number 16, who had lost his past experience, could no longer develop the will of a physical invulnerability expert. With the blonde man as an example, Lu Qing didn't dare to ask directly. Instead, he shared his concerns with Ji Jianzhang and Dou Ning. That's easy. Ji Jianzhang pointed his sword downwards and plunged it into number 16's throat. However, it only went in a little and didn't damage the trachea or arteries. BZZT BZZT BZZT. As yin and yang circulated, a magnetic field enveloped the surroundings, interfering and distorting most of the signal sources in number 16's body. Where's North Harbor Base? Asked Lu Qing in English with a Connecticut accent. Number 16's nerve signals seemed to be in disarray. After a moment of silence, he answered, Underneath the Hako Machinery Corporation. Corporation. A joint research project between America and Japan. Ji Jianzhang came to a realization. Following that, Lu Qing asked about the whole story. North Harbor Base's secret research had achieved a breakthrough and was in urgent need of dangerous grade materials to verify the results. There weren't many such experts, but there weren't many of them. Within a short period of time, the base couldn't find any and their preparations were about to be scrapped. Therefore, the person in charge sent number 4, 5, and 6 to fight in the underground boxing ring and challenge arena masters to see if they could lure out a lone dangerous grade expert. 2 days later they encountered Lin Quebec. After the arena battle ended, number 16 secretly knocked him out and took him away. After he was sent back to the base, due to the lack of accurate information, they assumed that this dangerous grade young man didn't have a powerful background. Therefore they happily put Lin K on the experiment table. Also, according to number 16, there were still number 17 and 18 in the base who were more powerful than him. Ji Jianzhang retracted his sword with his right hand, extended his left palm, and grabbed number 16 out of thin air. He sighed in self-reproach. We were all prejudiced by first impressions and thought that it was the revenge of the human trafficking organization. In the end, it was just a coincidence. No wonder we couldn't find any clues and let Kair suffer. As he sighed, he looked at Lu Qing and nodded gently. It's all thanks to you. Let's go. I want to see what they're researching, said Dou Ning with a cold face, no longer as elegant as usual. Lu Qing didn't say much. He followed behind the old couple and left the factory ruins on the outskirts of the city. They arrived at Tignes North Harbor. This place was backed by a large river and was an important node for the transportation of many resources. Even in the middle of the night, lights and neon lights could be seen. It was a stark contrast to most of the areas that lacked electricity. The corporation that number 16 mentioned was located near the warehouse area. It was a small 3-story building on the outside, but underground was a large experimental area. Those who disguised themselves as security guards were all elite special forces soldiers who had seen blood. However, in front of 3 physical invulnerability experts, they couldn't resist at all. Before they could even react, they were crushed by Lu Cheng's simplified army formula. Snot and tears streamed down their faces as they didn't dare to make a sound. Without wasting time dealing with this group of people, Ji Jianzhang found the entrance to the underground. Lifting number 16, he opened the door with his iris. As soon as the door opened a crack, Ji Jianzhang leaped into the room like a shooting star. Along the way, he swung his sword at one guard after another. Dou Ning held her sword and stood at the side, guarding against any accidents. Lu Qing, who seemed redundant, was at the back. He bulged his muscles and destroyed part of the door's mechanism, making it unable to close again. He was afraid that he would be trapped underground and get hit by a huge bomb in an enclosed space. Thump. Ji Jianzhang stopped at the end of the tunnel. The guard who was first hit by his sword had just fallen to the ground. Dou Ning left one alive to destroy his mental state. She asked if there were any experiments tonight and where they would be held. Currently, the focus of the North Harbor base was on the matter number 16 mentioned. Wherever there were experiments, Lin Ke would be there. Turning into the inner path of the base, the Ji family's 2 elders attacked together and separately. They didn't let a single obstacle delay their journey, nor did they give the other party a chance to trigger the alarm. As the sword light moved further and further away, the figures gradually fell. Lu Qing, who was following behind them, felt like he was watching a movie. Along the way, Ji Jianzhang used number 16 to complete all the doors that required identity verification. 3 minutes later, they finally saw the main laboratory and the rigid mighty ones guarding outside. They wore armbands with 8 and 10 written on them. "You go in first." While Ji Jianzhang was transmitting his voice to Lu Qing, he threw number 16 at the door to attract the attention of the guards. Whoosh! Sword light flashed. 2 shooting stars whizzed out and slashed at number 8 and 10, completely enveloping them. Lu Qing, who had been ready, pounced at the door, grabbed number 16 in midair, and sent him to the verification area. Beep beep beep. The heavy doors separated. Lowering his waist and tilting his shoulder, he rammed into the door, not giving the person inside a chance to react. Bam! A hole appeared in the metal door, and the alarm rang throughout the laboratory. As soon as Lu Qing entered, his ice heart immediately shone on his surroundings. He locked onto Lin Ke, who was pinned to the metal bed. His face was contorted in pain and his body was full of instruments. Parts of his body were exposed to the white bones and bloody flesh. Next to him was a man holding a cutting knife and wearing a lab uniform. Anger rose in Lu Cheng's heart. He arched his back, lowered his hands and shook his wrists to the sides. A cluster of light purple flames flew close to the ground, silently igniting the devices and the bodies, causing them to scream in agony. On the other side, a cold light moved forward, freezing several lab members from the soles of their feet to their heads, turning them into ice sculptures. Bam! Lu Qing stirred up a strong gust of wind and used ground shrink to rush to Lin Ke's side. Only then did he secretly heave a sigh of relief. The remaining lab members were scared out of their wits and hurriedly retreated. Ji Jianzhang and Dou Ning took care of number 8 and 10 outside and entered one after another. Suddenly, a mellow voice rang out. "Looks like they've made a mistake and offended someone they shouldn't have." Lu Qing followed the voice and saw a woman with snow-white skin and shoulder-length black hair. She was sitting leisurely on a lab table, wearing a black casual jacket with decorative numbers on it. 18. Noticing the intruder's gaze, the woman didn't show any signs of rigidity. She smiled in fluent Chinese and said, "Luckily he's still alive. Mistakes can still be made up for. Gentlemen, it's better to squash enmity than to keep it alive. Why don't we discuss how we should apologize and make amends? P.S. Looking for recommendation and monthly votes on Monday." Chapter 658. Compared to number 16, number 18 was more lively and natural. She smiled before speaking and didn't look like one of the test subjects at all. If they had met elsewhere, Lu Qing would definitely have noticed the strangeness and uniqueness of number 4, number 6, and even number 16. However, he would most likely have treated number 18 as a normal physical invulnerability expert. Perhaps this is why number 16 thinks she's stronger. With an elder by his side, Lu Qing didn't act on his own accord despite his anger. Instead, he thought of other problems to maintain his ice heart. Hearing number 18's words, the lean and elegant Ji Jianzhang looked deeply at her. He glanced at Lin Kei from the corner of his eye and laughed. I haven't traveled in Jianghu for many years. Looks like everyone in this war-torn zone has forgotten the name of the heaven-leaning sword. Let's have a discussion. We'll consider how to apologize and compensate you after this. As he spoke, his smile faded and his tone turned sinister. At the last word he flicked the tip of his sword. Clang. A dragon's roar soared into the sky and reverberated throughout the entire main laboratory. It shook the ears of the remaining researchers in protective gear and immediately plunged them into a world of silence. The sound of the sword entered their ears and a radiance erupted. Thin rays of light first sprang up like a fountain and then sprinkled down, covering number 18. It had a strong suction force that made it difficult for the enemy to move. Some even wanted to throw themselves into the trap like moths to a flame. The Yin-Yang magnetic ray sword. The sword cuts the body and the magnetic field destroys the instrument. This was the most effective way to deal with the products of man-made weapons projects. However, number 18's thoughts and reactions were like those of a normal physical invulnerability expert. She wasn't affected at all. The fact that her previous suggestion was rebutted made her squint her eyes. She was no different from an ordinary person when she hid her anger in the stars. Her eyes sparkled and she instantly regained her composure. She didn't force herself to move. Instead, she placed her hands on the edge of the long experiment table and leaned back. Her dangling right leg followed the suction force and swung upwards. The blazing light formed a knife and slashed towards the core of the sword aura fountain. But the moment Ji Jianzhang drew his sword, or even the moment he spoke, Dou Ning had already made her preparations. She took a step forward, squatted down, and stabbed the ancient long sword that shone with clear moonlight into the ground, spreading out a heavy and gloomy glow. The surrounding concrete immediately cracked, as if it had been weathered for a long time and was extremely dry. The remaining experimental personnel who were shocked by the sword's sound had their feet stuck to the ground, trembling non-stop. Their skin dried up inch by inch as if their blood and water were being sucked away. The dim light was either heavy or light, causing the gravitational force in this area to be unbalanced. It pulled number 18's movement in the opposite direction, causing her razor-like right foot to be somewhat sluggish. Her cooperation with Ji Jianzhang's sword was flawless, showing the tacit understanding that had been settled for decades. The eighth move of the fighting sect, Withered Desolation, Silent Earth. There were 3 stages to this killer move. First, it would extract the surrounding water, including the ground and the living beings that were attached to it. Next, it would simulate a certain degree of gravity to disturb and influence the enemy. Finally, it would trigger an earthquake at a locked location and release the gathered energy. These 3 stages could be used separately and only one of them could be used. After mastering the sequence, it could be changed according to one's will. Clang, clang, clang. The light of the razor split apart the rain of swords and accurately blocked Ji Jianzhang's blade. However, due to the pull it was a little slower. Many of the lights escaped the net and were continuously slashed by them. If number 18 hadn't formed a shield in time to resist the damage, she would have been covered in cuts and bruises. Clang. Dou Ning straightened her back and stood up. She took the opportunity to pull out her sword. From left to right, she slashed at her opponent lightly, but the suction force was obvious. Beside her, the experimental personnel wearing protective suits fell to the ground like dominoes. Their faces were filled with fear like specially made dried corpses. Ji Jianzhang's wrist shook. His long sword was half-hooked. From right to left, it was so heavy that it felt like he was carrying 1,000 kilograms of weight. However, it felt like he was pushing someone. One sucking and one repulsing, one pulling and one pushing. The 2 sword techniques complemented each other and enveloped number 18. Lu Qing stood beside the metal bed and didn't interfere rashly. A battle between physical invulnerability experts took up an extraordinary amount of space and range. If one didn't have long practice of cooperation and forcefully helped, it would affect the footwork and moves of the 2 seniors. 1 plus 2 might be less than 2. Under such circumstances, the best way to work together was to take turns attacking the enemy, one after another. It was just like his experience with Renli. Unfortunately, the 2 of them had been in the martial arts world together for many years and had a tacit understanding of each other. They didn't leave any gaps for others to interfere. It feels like an unnecessary onlooker. The thought flashed through his mind, but he didn't relax at all. Since number 18 is here, what about number 17? What about number 17, whom number 16 thought was stronger than him? Is he also in the base and rushing over after hearing the commotion? Or is he hiding somewhere, waiting for a chance to deal a fatal blow? With such concerns hanging at the back of his mind, Lu Qing completely gave up on the idea of attacking number 18. While blocking the aftermath of the battle between physical invulnerability experts to prevent the immobile Lin Ke from being accidentally injured, he used the ice heart to reflect his surroundings and check on his brother-in-law's condition. Lin Ke's pain eased, and Lu Qing's figure was reflected in his slightly cloudy eyes. He was stunned for 2 seconds before he remembered who he was. His tense muscles relaxed and his eyelids drooped, covering that fleeting moment of weakness. When he opened his eyes again, his emotions had returned to normal. 2 sparks of light appeared at the bottom of the dark pool. His dry lips moved with difficulty, and his throat bobbed up and down a few times. However, he couldn't make a sound. From the shape of his mouth, he was clearly saying, Thank you." Lu Qing felt a lump in his throat. He hurriedly looked for a way to deactivate the various devices. He wasn't proficient in such matters, so he didn't dare to do it right away. He was afraid that he would destroy some important device and cause his brother-in-law's condition to worsen. He glanced at the area facing away from the battlefield and glanced at the researchers who had turned into ice sculptures. With a press of his right hand, an unbreakable ice wall formed beside the metal bed to block the aftermath of the battle between physical invulnerability experts. With a leap, Lu Qing pounced to the side of a researcher who seemed to be the leader. With his left palm burning with faint purple flames, he slapped the other party's shoulder. Drip, drip, drip. The ice wall melted. The researcher's face turned green as he trembled. Unfortunately, what awaited him wasn't Yen Yuan, but a simplified army formula. The researcher broke down instantly. He was dragged to the metal bed by Lu Qing for a consultation. He spilled everything he knew, including the number of one-night stands he had. Pressing and pulling, Lu Qing quickly deactivated the devices on Lin Ke's body. Just as he was done, he was startled. He turned around and looked at the door. A figure was approaching with a trail of light. Noticing Lu Qing's gaze, he paused. His blonde hair was parted in the middle, and his pupils were crimson red as if they were burning. He wore a white t-shirt with the number 17 on it and a black jacket. His hands, which were placed in front of him, were surrounded by fiery snakes. They weren't damaged at all. It's the 17th. Lu Qing felt relieved, but he had more worries. The main laboratory wasn't small, but it wasn't big either. He had to take care of his brother-in-law, who didn't have any defensive abilities. He wouldn't be able to fight to his heart's content. Looking at number 17, he wasn't an easy opponent to deal with. Amidst his thoughts, Lu Qing quickly made a decision. He leaned back and pressed with his palm, sealing Lin Ke in layers of ice and leaving some breathing holes. This way, as long as Grandpa Ku and Grandma Ku could get rid of number 18 as soon as possible, the impact on brother-in-law would be under control. He had to choose the lesser of 2 evils. With Lu Qing's move, number 17 moved as well. He crouched like a leopard on the hunt and pounced. He clenched his fists and placed them beside him, covered in golden red flames. With a push, Lu Qing also rushed forward, his right fist burning with a faint purple flame, tightly wrapped around it. Under the control of the god above his head, the anger in his heart leaked out little by little, adding fuel to the Lord Emperor's purple flames. Boom! The fists collided and an explosion sounded. The researchers, who were paralyzed like mud, were sent flying and slammed into the wall. Their bones were broken and blood spurted from their mouths. It was obvious they wouldn't survive. Lu Qing didn't have the slightest bit of sympathy for this kind of people who experimented on innocent and involuntary people. In fact, he even wanted to burn them to the ground. Faint purple and golden red flames splashed, igniting parts of the equipment and activating the smoke alarms. The newest fire-extinguishing material scattered. Amidst the smoke and fire, number 17 and Lu Qing's fists reverberated at the same time. One retreated with his left shoulder and advanced with his right, bending his elbow and smashing down. The other retracted his right fist and advanced with his left, still covered in purple flames. In an instant, Lu Qing opened his fist and extended his 5 fingers. His palm firmly held number 17's elbow. Number 17's elbow suddenly sank. He swung his forearm and used the force to punch. The golden red flames spun and erupted. Just as he was about to move, Lu Qing's palm on number 17's elbow suddenly shook, dispersing the force of his opponent's punch. He shook number 17 a few steps back and let the purple flames flow over. At the same time, he tilted his head slightly and dodged most of the golden-red flames. The remaining flames didn't leave a single burn mark on his face. It was as though he was playing with his cat. Number 17 shook his forearm and let the purple flames fall to the ground. They softened the ground and left a black mark. Both of them were experts at controlling fire. P.S. Looking for recommendation votes, monthly votes? Chapter 659. Shaking off the purple flames, number 17 took a step forward, raised his right leg and lashed out at Lu Cheng's head. It was fast and ferocious like the assault of fire. Lu Cheng lowered his body and stepped out diagonally. While avoiding the kick, he took advantage of the fact that number 17 was standing on one leg with his right hand hanging down. With a hook and shake, he threw out a cluster of light purple flames that slithered close to the ground. It burned silently with hidden power. Even a master of fire control would be burned and melted by it. This was the manifestation of ice burning, the essence of the fifth move of the fire sect, burning mountain, evaporating lake. Number 17 missed with his kick. Exerting strength from his waist, he leaped into the air, causing the cluster of light purple flames to rush to the side of the wall. As it soared, it softened and warped the upright silver-white metal. Bending his back in midair, number 17 released himself like a titan's spring. He straightened his body abruptly and lightly kicked out with his left leg. The kick seemed casual and natural, but it was just right. It was so heavy that Lu Cheng couldn't help but sway forward to receive it. Crick. Lu Cheng circulated his qi and blood, stimulating his body. Using the simplified fighting formula, he expanded his muscles and resisted the suction force with his explosive strength. He threw a punch. Bam! His fist landed squarely on the sole of number 17's foot, causing the black military boots to flutter like butterflies. They either fell into the flames or drifted to the ground. Number 17 used the force to bounce back. Before he could regain his footing, he saw Lu Cheng pouncing at him at lightning speed. His right fist was unusually heavy and covered in purple flames. It was like the majestic hand of a legendary emperor that could encompass heaven and earth. Simplified attainment formula. His heart stirred slightly. Number 17's eyes glowed green. The light quickly gathered and shot at Lu Cheng's head. Laser beam cannon. You're fast, but I'm faster. This was a high-tech device that only number 16, number 17, and number 18 could use. It was inseparable from their own unique abilities. Even if the other codenames obtained it, they wouldn't be able to activate it. Even these three Terra-grade mighty ones couldn't use it consecutively. Their bodies and equipment couldn't take it if they used it too often. Lu Cheng threw a punch, but he suddenly sensed danger. He collapsed his shoulder, pulled his arm, and forcefully changed the direction of his punch to a downward smash, causing his body to fall forward. Whoosh! The two beams of green light hit the opposite silver-white wall and directly penetrated it, leaving a hole. Before Lu Cheng could straighten his body, number 17 rushed forward, swinging his right arm and punching downwards with his clenched fist. With two bangs, he continuously hammered down with both hands. The golden-red flames bared their fangs and brandished their claws, choosing their targets to devour. Lu Cheng lowered his head and swung his arms upwards to block. Rumble. Rumble. After two punches, number 17 lowered his right arm and raised his fist from the ground towards Lu Cheng's chin. It was as if he was going to send Lu Cheng flying into the air. Lu Cheng quickly shrunk his shoulders and folded his arms in front of his body to cover his face. He was in a boxing defensive stance. Bang! A ball of fire burst out. Lu Cheng leaned back and took a step back. Number 17 took a step forward. As soon as his left foot stepped on the ground without a shoe and sock, flames immediately shot out from under his body. The flames shot up into the air as if they were burning a cannon. Bang! At the critical moment, Lu Cheng ignited part of the flame force in his body. He changed directions in midair and moved horizontally. The pillar of fire that seemed to be shouting at the heavens brushed past him and only burned his right leg. His navy blue trousers turned into ash. The woolen pants that Yen Zhika had mentioned vanished, leaving only red skin. If the flames had burned a little longer, even Lu Cheng would have been burned. Number 17, who had completed his combo, didn't waste the advantage he had just accumulated. He ignited the flame force in several parts of his body. This igniting was like a flickering match thrown into a car's fuel tank. Number 17 instantly exploded, throwing a total of 8 punches at Lu Cheng. This was in the time it took a normal physical invulnerability expert to throw 2 punches. Bang, 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 bang. Lu Qing couldn't hold on by himself. He could only assume a complete defensive stance, protecting the vital parts of his upper body. The rest of his body formed ice walls and continued to condense. Crack, crack, crack. It was hard to tell whether it was the sound of crystals shattering or bones cracking. He finally survived number 17's most violent round of attacks. Many of his body's surface were charred and sunken. After 8 punches, number 17 took a step back, caught his breath, and punched out his right fist again. The golden-red flames sang joyfully, as if they had transformed into an undying bird that only existed in myths and legends. It ferociously pecked at its opponent, and its beak was number 17's fist. At this moment, Lu Qing, who had been in a complete defensive stance but hadn't forgotten to prepare a counterattack, endured the pain. Taking advantage of his opponent's retreat, he exhaled and shouted, "Formation!" He didn't make any hand seals. Instead, he used his visualization, voice, and mind to perform a half-simplified version to save time. The air instantly froze as if it had turned into an invisible wall. The golden-red immortal bird transformed from number 17's fist was about to fly out, but it was imprisoned in place. It bit and burned furiously, trying its best to destroy the wall. The half-simplified version of the formation formula wasn't as effective as the complete version. It lasted only half a breath before it was smashed and burned by Lu Qing's fist. However, Lu Qing had already bent his back, dodging the remaining force of the immortal bird fist. At the same time, the deep, dark universe and dazzling stars appeared around him. This move was both a counterattack and a counterattack. It was brilliant. Following which, he crossed his hands and swung them at number 17 from below like a sledgehammer. He straightened his body and stared at number 17 with his eyes fixed. Number 17 clenched his left fist and hammered it down. The moment he came into contact with Lu Qing's hands, his body seemed to have become weightless. He took advantage of the momentum and fell back, half blocking and half parrying. He had just taken a step back when the dreamy, boundless starry sky enveloped him, turning the surroundings dark and cold with layers of ice. Number 17 was sealed in the transparent coffin and couldn't move for a moment. The stars whizzed over like rocket launchers, smashing into the ice layer one after another. They first blasted open the crystal and then flew toward number 17 one after another. Boom, boom, boom. The densely packed explosions almost merged into one, and the resulting shockwaves shattered more than half of the ice wall around Lin Quebec. Number 17's figure appeared amidst the scattered flames and smoke. He had a mixture of red and white liquid at the corner of his mouth. His clothes were tattered and riddled with holes. His flesh was charred black. With the defense of his shield and his control of flames, his injuries weren't too serious. However, in his eyes, Lu Qing's surroundings were already swirling with faint purple, light blue, and scarlet. Furthermore, they were still condensing into gold and white. Bam! Lu Qing took a step forward and struck out with his palm. Number 17 was about to block with his fist, dodge the condensation and counterattack. However, just as he raised his arm, a green light flashed in his eyes as though he had sensed something. He forcibly used Flame Leap and moved horizontally with a bang. The change in direction was too steep, causing many of the wounds on number 17's body to split open and bleed. It's a pity he didn't take the bait and block the lament of the Ice Queen head-on. Lu Qing changed his mind and continued attacking his enemy. At this moment, number 18 let out a scream of fear. Then Lu Qing's eyes were filled with the radiance of the sword. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. As the sword flashed, the sound of flesh being cut rang out continuously. Ji Jianzhang and Dou Ning had worked together for a long time before finally killing number 18. If it weren't for their tacit cooperation, number 18 would have had a chance to escape from the base if it were 2 other physical invulnerability experts, as long as they weren't at the level of Warrior Sage or Dragon King. When the sound entered his ears, number 17 frowned. He made a prompt decision and shot out a violent and terrifying reddish-gold fireball. His target wasn't Lu Qing but Lin Ke. As soon as the fireball flew, he ran for the door without looking back. His figure flashed continuously as he retreated. Lu Qing's pupils shrank. He didn't dare to risk Lin Ke, whose ice wall was severely damaged. He immediately changed directions and blocked in front of the metal bed with his ice spirit holy light. Poof! Boom! The reddish-gold fireball was first pierced and then exploded. The sound was deafening and the shockwave was like a tsunami. However, Lu Qing blocked it all. Bam! 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 At this moment, Number 17's figure had long disappeared from the door. No one knew where he went. Seeing Lu Cheng's slightly regretful expression, Jianghu sheathed his sword and said, "Well done. This old man was a little impulsive just now. I should have moved K.R. first. Let's call it a day. The direct attacker and the leader of the base have already been killed. He's just a subject. Don't worry too much. Don't go too far. After all, Ku is still in America. So in the world of physical invulnerability experts, this isn't considered going too far." Lu Cheng glanced at the dead subjects in number 18. The corner of his mouth twitched. But then again it made sense. The Americans and Japanese were in the wrong, and what they did was against human nature. What they did was the kind that would be condemned in speech and in writing. Giving them some face wasn't considered too harsh. If anyone dared to make things difficult for Ku, did they really think that their family could withstand the revenge of a physical invulnerability expert who had been waiting for them for 10 years? The borders were so long that it was easy to find a place to sneak in. Even if there was a physical invulnerability expert at home, they couldn't keep their entire family tied to their waist at all times. Once they shed all pretense of cordiality, both sides would suffer huge losses. Therefore, physical invulnerability experts knew their limits. Of course, lunatics like Dark Knight Bat were an exception. Find some survivors and copy the information here. Then destroy the base. First, we'll have something on them. Second, we'll be able to prevent K.R. from being harmed by the experiments. When the time comes, we'll be able to follow the clues. Dou Ning said to Lu Cheng, half sighing and half benevolent. She was imparting her experience in dealing with similar situations. Okay. Lu Cheng heaved a sigh of relief and turned to another laboratory. Boom. Huge flames rose up, and the Hoko Machinery Corporation completely collapsed. Number 17, whose blonde hair was parted in the middle, was hiding in the crowd and watching the scene in a daze. Suddenly he burst into laughter. He laughed so hard that tears rolled down his cheeks. "Free, free," he kept muttering. In exchange, the surrounding people looked at him as though he was crazy. P.S. Previously there were 274, so this is 70 SIXS. Please recommend and vote. Chapter 660. The plane flew above the clouds, sometimes stable, sometimes bumpy, as it headed towards the Southern Expressway of China. Lin K was fixed on a flat bed with an auxiliary life support system plugged in. He fell into a deep sleep due to extreme fatigue after a long period of tension and wasn't affected by his surroundings at all. Lu Cheng, Ji Jianzhang, Dou Ning, and a few other military personnel sat nearby, flipping through thick documents marked as secret. These were printed from the information they brought out from North Harbor Base. According to the description, the underground laboratory had existed for a long time and was a product of history. It started as an air raid shelter and was later expanded to its current state. 2 years ago, it was remodeled and welcomed a joint research team from America and Japan. This was a branch of the Artificial Weapons Project. The main focus was changed from technological devices to genetic induction. In this aspect, Japan had done a lot of preliminary research and accumulated plenty of experience. It had been many years since the United States of America started the Artificial Weapons Project. After many failed attempts, they gradually found a direction and got on the right track. They had, number 1, that could be used in actual combat. After that, they improved it to number 15. Even though each number corresponded to only one experimental subject, there were actually many failed products buried behind them. Even those that succeeded had problems due to various reasons. More than half of them were removed from the sequence, providing experience and lessons for subsequent improvements. So far, the experimental subjects that were still in service were only number 4, number 5, number 6, number 8, number 10, number 14, and number 15. After Lu Cheng and the others wiped out them, only number 14 and number 15 in the American headquarters were spared. Among them, number 15 was a mature product in all aspects. This could allow the dangerous level experts in the United States to have a second life. As long as they did not die on the spot, they could undergo the modification with a relatively high success rate. The only problem was that they would become rigid and mechanical, forgetting most of their memories. They would only retain their instincts and simulate normal behavior patterns according to the implanted chip. During this process, for various reasons, every test subject had a built-in blocking program to prevent them from going out of control. The blonde number 5 triggered this and suffered a genetic breakdown. After accumulating enough danger-grade experiments, the scientists of the Artificial Weapons Project set their sights on the terror grade. Number 16, who was rumored to be dead due to severe brain injuries and was in a vegetative state, entered their sights. A year later, number 16 came back to life. Even without the implantation of a chip, he could fight on his own. It was almost the same as when he was alive. However, his daily actions were a mess and he still had to rely on simulations. With such a successful experience, the artificial weapon project had a higher goal. It was to create products that were no different from normal physical invulnerability experts and could think independently. Of course, brainwashing and control were necessary. For this reason, they reduced the application of nanotechnology and instead cooperated with the Japanese. Starting from genetic induction, the North Harbor base was put into use under this background. In less than a year, number 17, who was already adept at controlling fire, was born under the guidance and cloning of the genes of many fire element terror-level experts. There were no problems with his thinking and actions, except that he appeared to be more reclusive and introverted. Combined with the high-tech equipment in his body, his special physical invulnerability level combat strength was even more surprising. He also showed some potential for growth. The experimenters called him a master of fire control who could catch up to the Dragon King. Before number 17, most of the test subjects were on the verge of death. The few healthy captives all failed without exception. Number 17's success gave the Japanese physical invulnerability expert in charge of the base hope to improve herself. After ample preparation, she accepted a limited modification and was a great success. However, her personality was twisted, and she started to like calling herself number 18. It was because of this background that she had to apologize and make up for it in a leader's tone at that critical juncture. Recently, the North Harbor base's experiments seemed to have made a breakthrough. Before this, the standard of the test subjects depended on their original level. Modification could at most increase their combat strength slightly, and that was under the condition that there were many flaws. This time, the researchers found a better way to use the genes of the strong to make the weak undergo a qualitative change. Therefore, they urgently needed live subjects to verify it. Across the world, there were indeed many inhuman experts. However, they were not cabbages. How could there be a test subject on the verge of death or willing to appear in such a hurry? Therefore, Lin K, an inhuman with no background adventuring in the war-torn zones, was targeted. The person in charge of this was number 16. He was assigned number 4, number 5, and number 6. The follow-up verification of the information would be done by number 17, who was more independent and often active in the war-torn zones. It's a pity that the battle destroyed the main laboratory. A lot of data was lost. Also, judging from KR's situation, their breakthrough can't be considered a success, said Jianghu with a sigh after flipping through the data. Lin K's experiment hadn't reached the most dangerous stage yet. This data is enough. It will be of great help to our related research. The military personnel agreed with Jianghu's words, but didn't dare to say it out loud. He flipped through the files and changed the topic. The core researchers of the base in number 18 are all dead. The main laboratory was also destroyed. I'm afraid no one knows how number 17 used the external control of the blocking program. What a pity. Otherwise, the military would have another physical invulnerability expert. Lu Cheng was startled for a moment and then said thoughtfully, he pondered and said, number 17 participated in the battle for 2 reasons. First, number 18 was there. Second, he was afraid that the researchers weren't all dead and that the damage to the main laboratory wasn't severe enough. At least before confirming that number 18 couldn't escape, he didn't dare to slack off or join in the siege. If he did, he might be dragged down with them. It would be easy for number 18 to kill him. Maybe. Dou Ning nodded approvingly. If number 17 was as described in the data and had the ability to think like a normal human, at this moment the plane jolted. Lu Cheng swallowed the words he wanted to say. He looked out of the window and saw the ground peeking through the thin clouds. He looked at the dilapidated miniature city and suddenly recalled what he had seen and heard in the war-torn zones over the past 2 days. He couldn't help but open his mouth and say, when will peace be restored here? The overall environment was filled with despair in the war-torn zones. It seemed impossible to change it. Lu Cheng was also affected by such an atmosphere. He felt that doing anything would be useless. That was why he chose to be a bystander and not interfere in matters that were within the local rules. Jianghu turned to look out of the window. He smiled, half self-deprecatingly and half emotionally. None of the forces here are righteous. The military personnel beside him felt awkward. They looked at the data and admired the scenery. Even a forbidden mighty one can't change such a situation, said Ji Jianzhang. We can only hope that after such a long period of war, people's minds have calmed down. Even the forces and mighty ones who have set up a separatist regime are willing to compromise. Look at Zhelangang. With our help, it's focused on infrastructure and order. It has attracted a lot of refugees and is developing very quickly. If this continues, it will become a benchmark in the war-torn areas and attract other forces to imitate it. When the time comes after a certain amount of reshuffling, there might be many similar peace points. Step by step, things will get better, a military personnel emphasized. At this moment, Lu Qing, Ji Jianzhang, and Dou Ning felt Lin Kei's body move. They looked at him and saw his eyelids trembling slightly before he slowly opened them. How are you feeling? Dou Ning leaned over and asked concernedly. Grandma, Grandpa. Lin Kei greeted them twice. His personal style was obvious. Not bad. Ji Jianzhang stood up and stood in front of the bed, consoling his grandson. You've made great progress in refining your root pulp and gained some strange abilities. After you go back and rest for a while, you'll be able to reach the peak of the inhuman stage. At that time, you can fight in the title matches and seek inspiration. Maybe you can make the great leap earlier than expected. If you really can't do it, you can come back here and train in real battles. Ji Jianzhang stood up in front of the bed and consoled his grandson. Lin Kei didn't look away. His pupils darkened a little. He said with restraint but determination, I want to come every year. Even after reaching physical invulnerability. Why do you want to train in actual combat when you're already at physical invulnerability? At first Lu Qing was stunned. Then he understood his brother-in-law's true intentions. He replied tacitly, there are other mighty ones following that human trafficking organization. Don't worry. Lin Kei closed his eyes for a moment, then opened them again and said calmly, I'll still come. He'll still come? He'll still come after suffering so much? He'll help those he can help? He'll help those who can see the suffering. A few lines suddenly appeared in Lu Cheng's mind. Face as cold as ice, heart as bodhisattva. He'll do what he knows is impossible. Maybe this is the complete version of his brother-in-law, a stubborn boy, influenced by him. Lu Qing shook off the feeling of helplessness. He smiled and said, when I accept military missions in the future, I'll try my best to choose this place. If I meet them, I'll do what I can. The plane soared through the clouds. The curve of the southern part of China was getting closer and closer. Chapter 661. When the plane landed at the military base on the outskirts of Huaqing, it was close to noon. The sun hung high in the sky. Lu Qing stepped out of the cabin door and was blinded by the bright sunlight. He felt like there was gold everywhere. He had lunch with the Ji couple and watched them leave with Lin Quebec. Then he took the jeep from the base to a nearby intersection. He saw his assistant Amin, driver Zhao Zhenhua, and silver gray MPV waiting there. Although only 2 days had passed, when Lu Qing sat in his usual seat, leaning against the soft and comfortable leather backrest and looking at the small bar with luxurious decorations, it felt like a lifetime had passed. This is how life should be. He closed his eyes and sighed. Amin saw that he didn't want to talk, so she sat diagonally across from him. She put her phone on silent mode and communicated with him via text. The car left the overpass and entered the bustling commercial district. Lu Qing suddenly opened his eyes and turned to look at the street outside the dark glass. Half an hour had passed, but there were still delivery men in different uniforms on the road, carrying lunch boxes. They looked busy and orderly under the scorching sun. A new shop had opened on the side of the road. There was a long line at the entrance, attracting many onlookers. Business seemed to be booming. This is what life should be like. Such things happen in war-torn zones as well, but they're all for the relief ration, not for the delicacies or additional desires. Recalling what he had seen and heard yesterday, Lu Qing suddenly felt a surge of emotions. Amin followed his line of sight and looked in that direction. She said dutifully, this shop. They spent money to hire a lot of people to line up. Their model is very successful. They've opened quite a number of shops. Hired extras? Lu Qing swallowed back the sentiments he was feeling. How am I supposed to express my emotions? Amin retracted her gaze and saw that her boss looked a little weird. She quickly added, I heard it from a friend who specializes in this business. After hearing that, Lu Qing suddenly shook his head and laughed out loud. His body and mind seemed to relax. In the afternoon in Connecticut, the wind was biting cold and the ground was frozen. Yan Zhika had just finished class when she received a call from Lu Qing. He told her that Lin Kei had been rescued and that he was fine. He might even have good fortune in the future. Lu Qing didn't mention the details over the phone. He only said that he would describe it in person over the Christmas holidays. The girl understood the meaning of the song and did not ask further. She put the textbook into her orange-red sling bag and walked out of the classroom. She only felt that the sky was blue and the air was cool. The clouds were high and far, making people feel relaxed. There was an indescribable pleasure and leisure. She strolled along the picturesque campus road. Suddenly she saw a bouquet of red roses and smelled the faint fragrance of flowers. Alfred, who had eyes as blue as the sea, smiled brightly. "Sophia, may I have the honor of inviting you to dinner?" He and Yenjika had the same instructor, but they were not in the same group. His short blonde hair was flying in the wind and he looked handsome. "I'm sorry," Yenjika answered directly. "I've asked around. You only go home every night and have no other plans. Sophia, they all think that you're old-fashioned and conservative, a girl without any charm, but I can see the beauty that you're hiding. But that's not the main point. What strongly attracts me is your soul, your wisdom, the way you make people consciously listen to you every time you speak, and the way you always surprise the teachers and everyone." Alfred could not help but express his surging emotions. Sophia was an American name that Yenjika gave herself. "That's your business. It has nothing to do with me." Yenjika laughed. Then she waved her left hand. "See? I have a boyfriend. No, I have a husband. This is our wedding ring." "Oh, that's impossible." Alfred was shocked. "I won't lie to others about this." Yenjika shook her head and planned to walk past him. Alfred was silent for a moment. Then he suddenly shouted, "I won't give up. Even if we are married, we have the freedom to pursue love and the right to break up peacefully." Yenjika paused, turned around and looked at him deeply. Then she took out her phone and opened the recorder. She slowed down and said, "Can you hear what I'm saying?" "Yes." Alfred didn't know why. "Obviously my ears didn't lose their function." "Very good." Yenjika nodded slightly. "Then I officially reject you. I'll tell you seriously that if you do anything like this again, I'll consider it as harassment. When the time comes, I'll inform my lawyer and apply for a restraining order. If the first time doesn't work, I'll do it twice. If the second time doesn't work, I'll do it 3 times. Trust me, I have the ability to take it. If you doubt my determination, I can call my lawyer right now." Alfred was stunned. He didn't understand why a normal pursuit would turn out like this. Sophia, don't you think you're overreacting?" he said, puzzled and frightened. Yenjika pursed her lips and smiled. "Overreacting now can save a lot of trouble in the future. After all, some people don't understand rejection. I hope you don't waste our time. Otherwise, I can only sue you for harassment." After saying that, she turned around and was about to leave. But at this time she saw a big rock that was dug out and was about to be thrown away. So she smiled and politely said, "Also, I'm a martial artist." Before she finished, she took a step to the side and used force concentration. With a bang, she pulled out her right leg. The instep of her foot was straight in her boots. Bam! Smoke and dust rose. The rock cracked into many pieces of different sizes. Alfred stared blankly, his eyes full of fear. Yenjika pulled back her leg and walked steadily but slowly to the door. She saw Aunt Du, who had driven over to meet her. She opened the door and sat in the passenger seat. She wasn't in a hurry to put on her seatbelt. Instead, she bent down and rubbed her right foot painfully. She hadn't been practicing for the past few months. Her body had become delicate. That kick just now was so painful that she almost lost her composure. She took off her boots and socks. Seeing the red and swollen instep, she was so wronged that she almost burst into tears. Picking up her phone, Yenjika sent a resentful message to Lu Qing. "It's all your fault." When Lu Qing got the signal and saw the message, he was totally confused and bewildered. What did I do wrong? After returning from the war-torn zones and resuming his normal life, Lu Qing continued to plan for Ku's winter break. As his ferry had a last-minute arrangement to attend the European Economic Summit Forum, which lasted for 5 days, he was wondering if he should get a visa so that they could meet in advance and travel. It just so happened that he was in the mastering period and didn't register for the Battle of the King's main competition. He wasn't in the top professional competition yet, so he had some free time. Thinking about this, Lu Qing got out of the SUV and entered the club like he did the past few days. At this moment, Almond's phone began to vibrate. A call came in. After she picked it up, she nodded a few times and said, "Mr. Lu, Empress Luo wants you to go to her office." "That sounds formal." Lu Qing's sharp senses told him that something was amiss. He and Ning Zitong had each other's phone number and WeChat and would occasionally contact each other. If there was an emergency, there was no need for an assistant. Puzzled, he took the elevator to the 5th floor. As soon as he stepped out, he immediately felt the heavy atmosphere. This is the effect of a physical invulnerability, mighty one. As he pondered, Lu Qing knocked on Ning Zitong's office door. Ning Zitong's tired voice sounded from the other side. "Come in." Lu Qing pushed the door open and entered, only to see this peerless senior gently rubbing her temples. "Is something wrong?" he asked bluntly. "Everything was normal yesterday." Ning Zitong smiled bitterly and said, "Long Jun just informed me that he won't be renewing his contract after it expires in January. He's going to join Haiyuan Club, which just got promoted to the top professional competition." "Why?" Lu Qing asked instinctively. "Isn't this too sudden?" Even though Optimus Prime Long Zhen often challenged Dragon King, and was always beaten to a pulp, he seemed to be enjoying it. Long Zhen is also a proud man. He wants to prove that he's not the one who basks in glory under Dragon King, that he's not the mighty one who's always ranked second. This isn't something that can be changed with a few titles. Therefore, he's joining Haiyuan and officially leading the team to challenge Longhu as an opponent. He's been waiting for this opportunity for a long time. Ning Zitong replied helplessly, "Haiyuan also has some military background, so there's no problem with the procedures." Although this was foreseeable, and as long as Long Zhen was still unconvinced and competitive, this would happen sooner or later, did it have to happen so quickly and suddenly? He thought of Wu Maoyan, the current chief of Haiyuan Club, his master's old friend, and the self-proclaimed empty nest elder. He thought of which Qian Hui, Cheetah Li Yuanqi, and banished immortal, Li Xiaoyuan, who joined them before graduating from university. With Long Zhen they wouldn't be weak anymore. Ning Zitong lifted her cup and took a sip. She looked at Lu Qing and said, "I originally wanted to wait until you've accumulated a wealth of experience in title battles and have a better grasp of all aspects before letting you gradually get used to the top professional competition. Looks like I can't wait that long." Chapter 662. Without waiting for Lu Qing's reply, Ning Zitong explained in more detail. "You've seen the club's matches. Dragon King Long Zhen and I are the main force. I'm getting on in years, so I have to learn to choose and conserve my energy in preparation for a title or two every year. This year, I participated in the Battle of the Masters and Battle of the Kings. I rarely participate in consecutive matches in the professional matches. Most of the time I rotate with Lu Yan. At the age of 40 and above, except for a few freaks like Dong Baxian and Lu Yongyuan, the top physical invulnerability experts would rationally give up on many matches and spend half a year or even a year accumulating their strength to fight for the honor of being second best in martial arts. Only in this way would they have a greater chance of carving a bloody path out of a group of formidable opponents. But even so, in the end they would often fall in front of the Dragon King or the Warrior Sage, falling short of success. According to statistics, since the start of the legendary Twins era, at most 2 titles would be lost every year. Most of the time it would be 1. On rare occasions there would be no titles at all. This was even when Chen Qitao and Chen Donglu were both heavily injured. My silly disciple, Wuxia, usually only plays in the less important matches in the professional matches or takes over when someone is injured. She can barely cope with her current level. If it were some other forces she could be the main force. But our goal is to be number 1 in the world." Ning Zitong continued, half heartbroken and half self-deprecating. "I'm not saying that her hard work and training is useless, and I'm not saying that there's something wrong with her obsession with martial arts. She might be able to achieve rank 1 in a decade or so, but the problem is imminent." At this point, Ning Zitong took a deep look at Lu Qing and sighed. On the path of martial arts, talent is really important. Don't be fooled by the fact that the Dragon King is often described as having perversely strict self-discipline. However, his talent is only bad when compared to martial sages. He is no different from me and most of the top-notch experts who have obtained titles. In addition to his unrivaled desire to win and his frightening speed, he is already comparable to martial sages. Her foolish disciple might need 10 years to advance from rank 2 to rank 1. By that time she would be in her 40s. As for the person in front of her, he might need 3 years, 2 years, or even sooner to enter the ranks of the contenders for the title. This was the gap, a gap that could not be made up for in a lifetime. I've even mastered the physical invulnerability chapter of my martial arts. Isn't Long Zhen's contract expiring in January? You can participate in the remaining 3 matches? Ning Zitong chuckled. Do you think Dragon King will let him fight again? Don't you want to prove your position? The Dragon King will show you how insignificant you are. As long as the Dragon King is here, victory is here. That doesn't sound like something the Dragon King would say, Lu Qing pointed out. Although this was very much in line with the Dragon King's style, and even perfectly aligned with his psychological activities, with the Dragon King's personality and his domineering CEO demeanor, it was impossible for him to say such words. It wasn't that he didn't want to, but that he couldn't be bothered. What right do you have to make me say such things? Haha. Ning Zitong let out a dry laugh. I understand. Anyway, Long Zhen won't be part of the next 3 matches. You have to be prepared to be the main force. You can't always rely on me and Lu Yen, those 2 old men, to carry on, right? Especially the match this weekend. Lu Yen probably won't be able to fight. He's injured in the Battle of the Kings. He can force himself to fight, but it won't be good. This weekend. Aren't we going north to Hudong to challenge Shangqing sect? Lu Qing recalled. And it was a crucial match to determine the champion of this year's top professional competition. The Dragon King sure is conceited. It's fine. Yun Yen is injured and the rest are second pin, replied Ning Zitong with a smile. Ning Zitong replied with a smile. However, since we have a problem, she may also fight with injuries. Under normal circumstances, Shangqing sect's main force was warrior sage Qian Donglu, sect leader Taoist who had won 3 titles, and Taoist Yun Yen who was a strong contender for the titles. Dragon King Qin Chitao, Empress Luo, Ning Zitong, and Long Zhen were all part of the Twin Prides with 2 superclass members. They were the hot favorites for the top professional competition every year. In the second category were Daxing Temple, Yanzhao League, Shushan Study, and Xinghai Club. They were mainly fighting for the 3rd place, but in the past decade, they had each made it into the top 2 and even won the glory of the top. They were not to be underestimated. Lu Qing nodded slowly. I understand. I'll prepare well. He had to go through the information and videos of the Shangqing sect mighty ones. Pulling himself together, Lu Qing left the office. Just as he was about to turn into his room, he saw Long Zhen walking along the corridor towards the elevator. He was over 1 meters tall, with bronze skin and a shiny scalp. Wearing a loose-fitting martial arts suit, his mere presence gave off a strong sense of oppression. At this moment he looked relaxed and lively. It was as though he had returned to nature after being in a cage for a long time. Lu Qing didn't expect to meet him directly. He felt a little awkward and didn't know what to say or what kind of attitude to present. Morning. Long Zhen laughed heartily. After greeting him, he looked down at Lu Qing and said leisurely, wait until 5 years later. I believe you will make the same choice as me. Ha! Lu Qing was a little confused. At this moment, Long Zhen stepped into the elevator, turned his huge body and said in an ethereal tone, because we will always be proud. The door of the sedan chair closed slowly, blocking Lu Qing's line of sight. He was stunned for a moment. Suddenly he remembered something his master once said, the best way to worship a martial artist was to catch up with him, face him, and defeat him. Looking at how Long Zhen enjoyed being tortured, perhaps he really worshipped the Dragon King in his heart. Sighing, Lu Qing returned to his room and turned on his computer. There were videos of warrior sage Qian Dongluo's recent matches. At this moment he suddenly remembered his original plan of traveling to Europe for a few days. Looks like it's over. Luckily I didn't mention it to Ko. Otherwise she would be disappointed. I don't have to get a visa for now. I can get it done earlier. Maybe in the future I won't have to go through so much trouble. As his thoughts raced, Lu Qing sent a message to Amin and asked her to help him get visas for various countries in Europe. Europe was currently a loose alliance. It wasn't possible to get a single visa to go to different countries. While Lu Qing was training hard, Amin went to some consulates in Huaqing. Those that didn't have consulates here, she found one online. After the information was submitted, the obvious description of physical invulnerability triggered the danger alarm and gave the consular officers a shock. They didn't dare to act on their own accord. After confirming that Lu Qing from the Longhu Club had applied, they reported it to their respective security departments. In an office in Nyo country, a black-haired, blue-eyed man wearing a general's insignia glanced at the name and ordered his assistant firmly, reject. Reject his visa. Why? The assistant blurted out blankly. Isn't this too casual? Should I check carefully? Although he's a crown-level mighty one, it wasn't as if there hadn't been such people entering the country before. The black-haired, blue-eyed general leaned back and said, "Do you still remember the death of Dark Knight Bat?" "Yes. 3 mighty ones died in succession. Satha was besieged by Dark Knight Bat and the rest. We don't know who did the rest. Back then there weren't any satellites monitoring this area, so we didn't take any precious photos," replied the assistant thoughtfully. "Lieutenant General Aman has confirmed that Lu Cheng is a confirmed mighty one in the area who chased the mummy all the way to Kukhang. He's quite suspicious," said the general calmly. "But he's only a suspect. Mighty ones of this level can cross the desert in a few hours if they want to. Even those in Nile's capital, Dika, are suspicious," said the assistant, providing his opinion. Recently, the secret cooperation between the United States and Japan was destroyed. The Crown Level number 16 and number 18 died there. They made a mistake and incurred the wrath of the Hua nation. There's no need to protest. However, Lu Cheng was involved in this matter," said the general. "I know about this. He's probably just a support." The assistant was still puzzled. The general was getting impatient. "Don't you get it? There are always crown-level mighty ones dying around Lu Cheng. At least 2 at a time. We're not like America. We only have a few. Do you want them to all die?" But this is just a coincidence, right? You can't use misfortune or disaster as a reason to reject his visa," argued the assistant, feeling a headache coming on. "At crown level, misfortune isn't fake. We have to treat it seriously. Who knows if it's another strange ability," said the general, tapping the table lightly. "Do you understand?" "Yes." "Then what reason should we use to reject his visa or not?" asked the assistant, seeking his superior's opinion. The general pondered for a moment. "According to the John Wilberg Convention." "You're kidding, right?" blurted the assistant, stunned. "No." The general shook his head. "Of course you have to use its full name." Amin received a reply 2 days later. She glanced at Lu Cheng beside her and pursed her lips. She didn't know what to say. "What's the matter?" asked Lu Cheng, opening his eyes. "Ox country has rejected your visa," replied Amin softly. "Reason?" asked Lu Cheng casually, frowning. Amin hesitated for a few seconds. "John Wilberg Convention on the Restriction of High-Danger Weapons. P.S. I went to see the doctor and he said it's still in the early stages, so it's not that serious. The treatment plan he gave me is exactly the same as one of my friends in the comments. Take hormones and neurotrophic drugs first, then get the face pierced a few days later. If the situation doesn't worsen and I'm getting better, then there's no need for the treatment. Yeah, I did get a few injections today on my hands, feet and stomach to relax muscles and promote blood circulation. He also reminded me to rest well and not stay up late. So, I'm going to take a leave of absence today and adjust my work and rest schedule together with the previous one. Once I'm fully recovered, the chapters starting tomorrow will not be affected until I get the injections. You're tuning in to the Han Lee's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.